Good morning. It is 9:03 and it's time to get this meeting underway. We will start this morning with prayer. I will ask Michael Sis to come forward from the Catholic Diocese here in San Angelo to start us off in a word of prayer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Let us pray. God our Father, we thank you for the gift of life, and we thank you for the gift of another day. In a very special way, we thank you, Lord, for the gift of rain with which you blessed our city last night. We ask you to keep us safe and grant wisdom to this council, so that they may, in their deliberations, seek what is in the best interest of the common good of all the citizens of this city. We ask you this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. And now I would like for some Boy Scouts to come forward and help me with the pledge. Mr. Slade Shelton, 8th grader at Glenn Middle School. Mr. Jason Stone, a 6th grader at Glenn Middle School. Mr. Deacon Davis, a 5th grader at Bonham Elementary. Mr. Trey Swartz, a 10th grader at Wall High School. And Mr. Reese Kirby, a 7th grader at the Wall Middle School. Welcome, gentlemen. We'll start with the American, and then we'll go to the Texas. Y'all ready? Get us started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
And let's get a picture. What do you want? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate y'all. And on our proclamations and recognitions this morning, and I'm going to change it around just a little bit, I've got the Bobcat gymnasts, both boys and girls, I want to recognize. If y'all would start coming to the front up here, and I'll start reading this. The Central High School gymnastic program has a long and a storied history of success. Even so, there's nothing within that rich tradition that parallels the two state championship that Central brought home to San Angelo earlier this month. Both the boys and the girls team earned state titles at the Texas High School State Gymnastics Championship on May 1 and May 2 at Fort Worth Chisholm Trail High School. For the boys squad, this marked the program's 7th state championship. Meanwhile, the Lady Cats accounted for 8 state titles, including one amazing 3rd straight. The dual state championships mark only the second time in the 49-year history of Texas high school gymnastics that one school has won boys and girls titles in the same year. It was the first time the feat had been accomplished in 22 years. Central Gymnastics also became the first program in Central's proud athletic history to win boys and girls state titles in the same season. En route to the championship, the teams produced 7 individual state championships earned by Michelle Gallagher, Melina Garcia, Hannah Hoffmeister, Carrie Wittenberg, and Michael Openkar. Additionally, the squads racked up multiple top 10 awards. The success is not only a tribute to the fine young athletes in the program, but to their coaches, Ken Arrett, who coaches the boys, and Tony Walker, who coaches the girls. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the Lady Cat and the Bobcat gymnastics team for their dedication and positive determination to make a difference in our community. And there's absolutely nothing I'd rather do than honor our youngsters, and I'm very proud of every one of you. Coach, come say a few words. One of the coaches, both of the coaches.
First of all, thank you for honoring us this way. We're very happy to be here, and we're always very proud of showing off our kids. We think that we have a wonderful group of athletes, wonderful group of kids that represent San Angelo and represent Central High School. We know of their athletic accolades and their awards, and you know of them because you read them and you hear about them. But what you don't see is when we travel with these kids in hotels and restaurants is that people don't know what we do, but yet when they see us after we're leaving, they come up to us and tell us what wonderful kids that we have or what wonderful kids that have stayed in their hotels, some of the very best. And we think that they're raised in San Angelo has a lot to do with that. So we thank you for your support as always. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Where do you want? Let's take a picture, Brian.
Boys in front, or boys in back, girls in front.
Okay.
Y'all gonna have to really scooch in and double up.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. I appreciate y'all very much. Let's do the lady in blue next. I understand you have an appointment pretty quickly. If you would come forward, sir, and I'll read this. It says that the Havana Indians were an important part of San Angelo's history and were peaceful farmers and traders. Y'all come up here. The tradition says that Sor Maria de Jesus de Agreda of Agreda, Spain, known as the Lady in Blue, appeared miraculously to the Humanos many times, teaching them the tenets of the Christian faith. In the 1600s, when Humano Indians approached Spanish Franciscans in New Mexico, the Humanos were carried Christian crosses and asked to be baptized, explaining they had been instructed by the Lady in Blue. The Franciscan priest had baptized Humanos in the river pecan trees and pearls, which celebrates San Angelo as the place our Christian faith was born in Texas. The Humano chieftain Gabriel Carrasco and other Humanos are coming to the land of their ancestors to join in the celebration of Lady in Blue. Other Native Americans representing other tribes are coming to join this celebration. The nearby sacred pictographs at Paint Rock on the Campbell Range, where Humanos likely created some of the pictographs, are another testimony to the Humano heritage. The works of Marilyn Fadewa, noted biographer of Maria of Agreda, Mystical Lady in Blue, and the music of Cynthia Jordan, composer of the music dedicated to the Lady in Blue, will be part of the ceremonies. Once again, the citizens of San Angelo and area towns will warmly welcome the Humano Indians, all Native Americans, and special guests. Bishop Michael J. Sis, Bishop of San Angelo, cordially invites everyone to join in the celebration to honor our West Texas history. We declare Sunday, May 24, 2015, the day of Lady in Blue celebration to be an historical and noteworthy time to honor the San Angelo area's multicultural history and Christian heritage. Therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 24, 2015 as the Lady in Blue celebration. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Make speech.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the city government for this proclamation. This is an event that's very important in our history. As he read, you heard some of the history and what in the proclamation said. I'm very grateful to the members of this Lady in Blue committee here in San Angelo for their leadership in keeping the fire going and preserving this very important part of our Christian heritage and the history of the people of this area. We have members of the Humano tribe who are coming from all over West Texas and from New Mexico to gather with us on the 350th anniversary of the death of Maria de Agreda. So thank you very much for this proclamation.
Let's get it big.
Anthony, let him get to the front.
Scooch in on both sides.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all. Let's go now to the 2015 Memorial Day Don't Drink and Drive Challenge, to be accepted by the San Angelo Motorcycle Police, Doré Hill and Wendy Medina from the San Angelo Metropolitan Planning Organization. Came by yourself?
Yes, I do.
All righty. Driving is a privilege, not a right. The National Highways Traffic Safety Administration has been cracking down on drunk driving for the past 11 years with national advertising such as drive sober or get pulled over. Law enforcement continues to be the front line in protecting our families from the danger of drunk driving. New statistics show that 2 in 3 people will be in a drunk driving crash in their lifetime. 92,767 Texans were arrested in 2013 for drunkenness and 78,352 for driving under the influence of alcohol. In 2013, Texas led the nation with 1,337 deaths caused by a drunk driver. The percentage of under 21 alcohol-impaired driving fatality was 36.1% in Texas and 30.8% nationwide. Percentage of drivers in fatal crashes involving repeat offenders with a blood alcohol level of a .15 plus was 76.9% in Texas, 73% national. Drunk driving with a child passenger is a form of child abuse. Educating our community is the key to deterring drunk driving. One fatality is one too many. Therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby kick off the 2015 Memorial Day Don't Drink and Drive Challenge in the City of San Angelo and urge all residents to join in this challenge. Ms. Medina, say a few words.
This is something that I've noticed has really increased a lot in our city. And I got some stats from the police department, and from the years 2010 to 2014, we've had over 1,300 cases of DWI. And to me, it's like there's so many different opportunities to have people drive safely. You have a friend. I can't tell you how many times I get called. My husband gets called because we're responsible. And I think San Angelo really needs to step up and really push this and get everybody on the same page, because it's not just our youth. It's anywhere from the age of 21 up to 50 that are having the issues of driving home intoxicated, and we don't want that to happen. So that's why this is really dear to my heart, and I also know it's dear to the mayor's heart. We're going to have some social media out there at the San Angelo MPO website. We have pledges that you all can fill out, and we're also going to give away a goodie bag for everybody who does pledge to not drink and drive during Memorial Day. And this is also something that we're going to do for every major holiday where there's alcohol. So 4th of July, you'll see us again. Labor Day, anything that has the possibility of having folks drink and drive. We really think that this is going to help the city, and it's going to make the city be responsible to take care of your own. And I just think that's real important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's all together, isn't it? You're right. You're going to do that this way? Just stay where you are. The next one is also from Ms. Medina, so let me read this one. The Lone Star State offers motorcycle riders an exceptional array of scenic diversity with its over 260,000 square miles of territory, altitudes ranging from sea level to 8,749 feet and an incredible 624 miles of the Gulf of Mexico shoreline. Motorcycles are fuel efficient, reduce urban traffic and parking congestion, and tread lightly on the overworked road system and transportation infrastructure for which they help provide funding. The state of Texas has over 448,000 registered motorcycles operating on their roads and have seen an increase in vehicular traffic due to oil field workers. The vast majority of the members of the motorcycle community are genuinely committed to upholding safe and sane policies and procedures for themselves and their passengers, and certainly also for their fellow motorists with whom they share the highways and roads of our state. From 2007 till 2014, San Angelo had 367 motorcycle accidents. 10 of these were fatal. The month of May has been deemed Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month at the national and state level, and the San Angelo Metropolitan Planning Organization and the San Angelo Police Department will educate the public regarding motorcycle safety, and it is appropriate to set aside a time to alert motorists to the number of motorcyclists on the road and to help motorcyclists become aware of the ways that they can promote safety. Therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the city of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2015 as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in the city of San Angelo and urge all motor vehicle operators to join in this effort to keep our highways safe. Corby, you going to make a speech?
Go right ahead, sir.
Come on, Corby, come make
Prepared to, but I will.
You can always. You can wing it, buddy.
I'll wing it. Well, thank you for doing this. I think anybody that rides for any time, Officer Loudermuck and I, we do this for a living, so we ride every day. I think we've done very well in educating our citizens, and San Angelo's done very well. Although the number 300 is pretty high, we have come down about 10 to 15% over the last couple of years. We've partnered with the MPO as well as TxDOT to get the awareness out there. We do our part, being very vigilant in what we do, and all we're asking as the public is to be aware that they're out there, drive safely, pay attention, because we have our faith in you that we're going to be protected when we're out on the road. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Corby.
No, I'm okay.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy.
Y'all get to keep that picture framed.
Thank you, Fred. I guess we're down to the budget now, aren't we? Budget Department, San Angelo, y'all come forward. City of San Angelo Budget Division for receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to be accepted by Budget Manager Morgan Shegwidden, Purchasing Manager Julie Antilli, and Contract Manager Jerry Miller. Let me read this. I guess I just did, didn't I? The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award presented to the City of San Angelo for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2014. And now the floor is open and the microphone for speeches.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Margaret.
I just appreciate the mayor and the council recognizing this today. This is really why we exist. This is why we have a budget division and why we do the work we do day in, day out to achieve this award and to show the citizens that we are doing our best with the dollars set forth and to present those in a way that can mean a lot to them. And we're just grateful that we scored the highest we really ever have at this award this year. And that's due to the tremendous talent that we had in this year's budget staff. So tremendous that they have moved on to be future leaders of the organization as purchasing manager and as solid waste contract manager. So it's a terrific thing that we can recruit this kind of talent and keep them and promote them and really invest in our staff. So we'll keep plugging away and hope to even overachieve what we did this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Don Vordman, come forward, please, sir. I'm glad Vardaman's finally getting to retire and go out and do what he wants to do. I'm going to miss you, boy. I've only known Don all of his life, so it's kind of a bittersweet thing. I hate to see him go. But we are presenting to Don Vardaman, our City Council member, single member District 4, for his service May 2013 to May 2015, and it is in grateful recognition of his dedicated service to the City of San Angelo that we'll give him this plaque. You've been a good friend, you've been a good council member, and I'm going to miss you dearly, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a lot of thanks to hand out. The council, I think that we have accomplished a lot. We've done a lot of good things. We didn't do near as much as I hoped we would, but you can stay up here forever and not get everything accomplished. Most of all, I want to thank the staff and the people that have supported me. Our staff I'll put them up against anybody. They love San Angelo. They love the community. They do it for the community and not for the pay. Our policemen, our firemen, everybody from the top to the bottom. The guys that are in the ditches at 2 o'clock in the morning, making sure the pipes are working and curing all the breaks that we have. Everybody works together as a team, and I appreciate it. I know that my chair will be more than adequately filled with Lucy. She's going to do a great job, and I want to thank my wife. She's more happy about leaving than I am. Thank you.
Let's get a picture, Don. Debbie, right? You beat him. Yeah, that's right. The rose between two thorns.
She'll make the picture pretty.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Thank you, sir. Got a lot of paper to shuffle around this morning. We are going now to the special agenda in which we will canvass the votes. The public
Consent agenda first.
We're going to do consent agenda first. The public comment section we will hold until we have set our new council, so we will hold off on the public comment, but we will do the consent agenda first before we do the special canvassing of the election. Do I have any items on the consent agenda from anyone on the council that wishes to pull and to move something to the regular agenda? Start with you, Ms. Grindstaff.
I have a quick question for item 11, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, we'll pull number 11 for an item. How about you, Mr. Boardman?
No, sir.
Ms. Farmer?
No, sir.
Huh?
I know. It's hard to believe, isn't it? She's
Say
here.
that again.
No, sir.
One more time. How about you,
Down
Johnny?
road.
0.
Marty?
12.
12? Rodney? Okay. All righty, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda of item number.
Move.
Can I apologize for interrupting, but there should be opportunity for public comment on the consent agenda. And once you pass that, even if you have public comment later, you'll have already voted on consent agenda. So if you could at least announce public comment on the consent agenda.
I will. Let's entertain a motion to accept, at which time we will have comment from
I
the council
so
and
move
also
to accept the consent agenda minus items 11
and 12.
and 12.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Do I have a second? I do have a motion from Johnny. I do have a second from Charlotte. I will now ask if there is any council consideration, any council's commentaries on the consent agenda, those items. That's items 1 through 13. Do I have public comment on anything on the consent agenda, items 1 through 13 minus 11 and 12? No comment. I will call for the vote. All in favor of approval of consent, items 1 through 13 minus 11 and 12, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one. Number 11 is consideration of authorizing the city manager or his designee to negotiate an agreement with the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office for termination of the interlocal services agreement by and between the city of Tom Green County that makes provisions for inmate labor at the municipal animal shelter, including the setting of an effective date for termination. Ms. Grindstaff?
I don't know much about this, Mr. Solis, but I thought that we'd had a very good relationship over time with the county. So I know there are a lot of changes going on at the shelter. Can you tell me how you're going to make up for this contract if this does in fact terminate?
We currently pay over $57,000 for the inmates. Actually, it's for the jailer to pay for the inmates to monitor the inmates' activity. We actually plan on using those funds to get some part-time kennel assistants to help do what they do. We've had that contract since 2010, and unfortunately, that contract requires them to do more than just kennel cleaning, maintenance, upkeep, that kind of thing. And they would rather not do that. So therefore, we're asking to terminate, and we'll continue with we'll go a different way.
And the county is amenable to that as well?
We did. I talked to the deputy sheriff. He understands. He's comfortable with it. He doesn't have any problems with it.
Thank you.
Charlotte?
I know that we originally started the program to assist the overcrowding out at the animal shelter with walking the animals, feeding the animals, and caring for the animals. And is this going to be continued with inmates, or?
Actually, they really only, during the contract, focused on the cleaning primarily. They did very little walking and those kind of things.
But it freed up employees' time to walk the animals and get them outdoors.
We currently use volunteers for the walking. We have a dog walk every Saturday, 8 o'clock, from 8 to 10. We get 40, 50, sometimes 60 volunteers out there. We get pretty much all the dogs that are walkable. We get them out there on we have a new track over at the shelter, and we basically walk the dogs, get them exercise once a week.
So this has no impact on that?
Yes, zero impact. That's correct.
Any other questions from council?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
You second, John?
Second.
Do have a motion to approve. I do have a second. Any further council discussion on this item? Do I have public comment on this item? All in favor of approval of item number 11, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Let's put a 7-0 on that one. Number 12, consideration of selecting Ronald R. Wagner and Company LP as the best value proposal and authorizing the city staff to negotiate an agreement in substantially the attached form with Ronald R. Wagner and Company LP for seal coat services per request for sealed competitive proposal. That's RFSCP ES0215/2015 annual seal coat project in an amount not to exceed $4,500,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the city of San Angelo and Ronald R. Wagner and Company LP. Shane Kelton, Don, this was yours, correct?
No, Marty.
Marty. Okay, Marty.
Is our study done? Is it completed?
The study's not quite complete. I'm sitting down with actually Fugro, the consultants, Thursday. They're coming to town. We're going to do a preliminary audit of all information and then do a street audit, actually a field audit as well. And then from there we will finalize all of the data on the street study, and once that's done they will start comprising their final report.
So are we confident that these streets didn't, that all they need are seal coating?
Yes, sir. For the most part, these are mostly residential streets that we wouldn't necessarily concentrate on with major reconstruction work.
How are these streets selected?
Based on where they have been in the cycle in the past, how long they've been without a seal coat on them, and two, based on visual appraisal by our inspectors, our engineering inspectors.
Any idea when single member District 2 might get a street?
We got real close to you this year, but not quite. So actually,
you didn't get to me last year, and you didn't get to me the year before either.
It should, hopefully next year. So we're actually, y'all given me enough money to get us on a decent rotation. So you should actually start seeing it go around town in a lot faster pattern at this point.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the study that we're talking about with Fugro, if it shows or indicates a street that actually should have a higher priority for seal coat than the ones that you have selected here, are you going to be able to change that through change order or whatever process?
We could, if there's something that needs to be, and we've also allowed ourselves, the bids actually came in, or this proposal actually came in lower than what we were expecting. Of course, this is the largest volume we've ever done before, so it was kind of uncharted territory for us. So the bids came in lower than they were expected, so I do have some room in our budget to be able to add and do some change orders and move stuff around. So if we do have higher priorities that come across in the study, we will be able to address those.
Well, I look forward to using the study to prioritize. So see, I'm not even mentioning my district number, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I am mentioning mine, and I'm going to continue to mention mine.
Mayor.
We'll get on you.
Johnny?
Shane, just for the sake of transparency, you mentioned budgeted. This is budgeted funds.
Yes, these are budgeted funds. Y'all set these budgets aside in the last budget year, and for the increased rotation and rate for the seal coat program, so and all maintenance programs. So
this is for that 8-year
This
Yeah,
is for that 8-year rotation that
Get
that city
everybody
council
8 years.
prioritized. So we want to make sure that over the 8-year period, we have all these streets maintained. So we have two different things going on, maintenance and also the reconstruction, which is what Food Grow is coming in to talk to us
Yes.
about as well. So.
As well as they will help us prioritize maintenance issues as well as far as seal coat.
Okay.
Any more questions on the right wing? Johnny?
Shane, monitoring of these projects, of these streets, are we going to have a crew there and
we-
not run into the last?
Every crew that will be out working for Mr. Wagner laying down seal coat, we will have an inspector with each crew.
I believe one of the biggest problems last time was it went way too fast. So
We only had one inspector assigned to that project. This year and they had 2 crews running. Anytime this year, if they have a crew, whether they have 2 crews or 3 crews or whatever, we will assign an inspector.
We'll be right there with
Yes,
them.
with them the whole time.
Good.
I'll entertain a motion to accept this.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, I do have a motion to approve. I do have a second. Do I have any further comment from council before we move on? Do I have any public comment on this item before we take our vote? If not, I will call for the vote.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Harry. I
Shane's a
couldn't.
little bigger than I
I
am.
didn't see you behind Shane.
Harry Thomas, just a real quick comment. I've looked at the number of streets that Shane and his crew has proposed through this proposal. I would encourage staff to take a quick look. We've got an 8-year rotation. Let's put that out there so the public knows which streets are going to be done next year, what's going to be done in 2017, and so forth, so we get an idea. You know, we have had comments from the councilman up here that says, hey, we're not getting any in our area. When are we going to do that? The public would also like to know that. I've got a street that really needs some repair done right now, and I'm not in this rotation this year, in Johnny's precinct. So let's put it out there so we know. I know we can change, but tentatively, we're going to do these streets in 2016 and these streets in 2017 and so on.
Thank you, Harry. That's a good idea. Did you hear him, Shane? Yep. Did you catch it, boss?
Yes, sir did.
Excellent idea. Let's do that. Any other further public comment on this item before I call for the vote? All in favor of accepting item number 12 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one as well. And that ought to have our consent agenda, which now takes us to our special agenda, which is consideration, item number 14, of adopting a resolution canvassing returns of the general election held in said city on the 9th day of May 2015 for the purpose of electing municipal officers, declaring results of the general election, and providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. To satisfy the legals, I got about 2 pages here to read, so it has to be read, so please bear with me as I read. This is a resolution of the City of San Angelo, Texas, canvassing results of the general election held in said city on the 9th day of May 2015 for the purpose of electing municipal officers, declaring results of the general election, providing a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. Whereas, pursuant to Resolution number 201502188 of the City of San Angelo, Texas, adopted on the 17th day of February 2015, a general election was duly held on the 9th day of May 2015 for the purposes of electing municipal officers for the following positions. Mayor, 3 single-member city council members from single-member districts 2, 4, and 6, respectively. And the general election was held with the solemnities. My goodness, I can't get that one. Solemnities and formalities necessary to make a valid election, all notices having been posted in the manner and for the length of time required by law. And only duly qualified resident voters of the City of San Angelo, Texas voted at the general election called and held on May 9, 2015. And Section 67.003 of the Texas Election Code, as amended, generally provides that each local canvassing authority shall not convene for the purpose of canvassing the election results earlier than the later of the 3rd day after the uniform election day in May, or the date on which the early voting ballot board has verified and counted all provisional ballots, if any, or the date on which all timely received ballots cast from addresses outside of the United States are counted, if any, and not later than the 11th day after the election day. And Section 67004A of the Texas Election Code, as amended, establishes the quorum level required to canvass election results to be 2 members of the canvassing authority, and the quorum of the City Council met on Tuesday, May 19, 2015, and duly canvassed the election results of the above described general election attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of San Angelo, Texas, Section 1, the findings set forth above are incorporated into the body of this resolution for all purposes as is fully set forth therein. Section 2, that the City Council officially finds and determines an election was duly ordered to be held in the City of San Angelo, Texas, on the 9th day of May, 2015, for the purpose of electing a mayor and city council members from single-member districts 2, 4, and 6, respectively, to 2-year terms of office, and that proper notice of said election was duly given, that proper election officers were duly appointed prior to said election, that said election has been duly made and election returns delivered, and that the City Council has duly canvassed said returns in all in accordance with law. Section 3, the City Council officially finds and determines that only qualified residents of the city were allowed to vote at said election, and following votes were cast at said election, and the canvass of the votes cast in said election and returns thereof, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, were made in accordance with the law. In the mayor position, there were 2. David Nowlin. David Nowlin received a total vote of 2,142. This was 39.55%. The mayor, Dwayne Morrison, received 3,274 votes for a total of 60.45%. This is a total for 5,416 votes cast for the mayor. Single-member District 2, Joe Marty Self received 712 votes, which was 100% of the votes cast. Single-member District 4, Andrew Justice received 194 votes for a percentage of 39.43%. Lucy Gonzalez received 298 votes for a percentage of 60.57%. And in single-member District 6, Charlotte Farmer received 1,025 votes, which was 100% of the votes cast. Did I do this correctly? You're good. I'm all right. Section 4, pursuant to the applicable provisions of the Texas Local Government Code, Texas Election Code, in the City of San Angelo, Texas Home Rule Charter, the City Council officially finds, determines, and declares the results of said election to be that Dwayne Morrison is elected mayor to a 2-year term of office by majority vote of the voters. Joe Marty Self is elected council member for District 2 to a 2-year term of office by majority vote of the voters. Lucy Gonzalez is elected council member for District 4 to a 2-year term of office by majority vote of the voters. And Charlotte Farmer is elected council member for District 6 to a 2-year term of office by majority of the voters. And Section 5, it is hereby declared to be the intention of the City Council that the phrases, clauses, sentences, paragraphs, and sections of this resolutions are severable, and if any phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, or section of this resolution shall be declared unconstitutional by the valid judgment or decree of any court or competent jurisdiction, such unconstitutionality shall not affect any of the remaining phrases, clauses, sentences, paragraphs, and sections of this resolution, since the same would have been acted by the City Council without the incorporation of this resolution of any such unconstitutional phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, or section. This resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. And I suppose now we need to take a vote on this.
Yes, sir.
Do I need to read this again? Will that suffice?
I think we got it.
Move for approval.
Second.
Do have a motion to approve by Don Vardaman. Do have a second by Charlotte Farmer. Do I have any further comment on the council on this before we vote? Do I have any comment from the public on this before we vote? Motion has been made that we accept the canvassing phrases, solutions, paragraphs as written, and I will now call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. That one carries by a 7-0 vote. I guess it's now time to administer the oaths. I guess if you only administer to me first, I'll have Marty come down. We'll take care of that. Judge Gilbert, come forward, please, sir. You will be administering.
your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Dwayne Morrison,
I, Dwayne Morrison,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of San Angelo
of the office of San Angelo
City Council
Mayor
Mayor of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And a certificate of election. Let's get the picture. Come here, Judge.
Smile, Marty.
Told him to smile.
You got it for another 2 years.
Let me do you next, since you're already here.
Marty. Congratulations. You raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I, Marty Self,
I, Marty Self,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office
of the office of
San Angelo City Council Member,
San Angelo City Council Member,
Single Member District 2
Single Member District 2
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lizzie,
Congratulations.
come forward, Miss Lizzie.
It was. So that's why, said he and Charlotte, I tell you, you ran a good, clean race. I'm proud of you.
All right. Ms. Gonzalez, if you will repeat after me, please. I, Lucy Gonzalez,
I, Lucy Gonzalez,
do solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
what did you say?
Faithfully
execute the duties
of the office of San Angelo
of the office of San Angelo
City Council Member,
City Council Member,
Single Member District 4
Single Member District 4
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
You want to go get that picture? You don't leave just yet. You don't leave just yet. Sit down.
Ms. Gonzalez. You can't run now. Miss Charlotte.
Don, giddy up.
So long.
Farewell, my dear friend.
Don, stick around. We are having snacks. Come on, Charlotte.
You okay? I know.
Would you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me? I, Charlotte Farmer,
I, Charlotte Farmer,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of San Angelo
of the office of San Angelo
City Council Member,
City Council Member,
Single Member District 6
Single Member District 6
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United
the
States
Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you.
Thank y'all very much. It was an honor.
Thank you, sir.
You're not going to say anything? Not recognizing?
We can do it in
Oh, good.
All right, now we have the introduction of special guest. Lucy, you're our new member. Why don't you start and introduce your special guest here this morning for you?
My special, is this?
It's on. If the green light is, you're on there.
Okay. My special guests are my mom, Alice Robledo, my husband, Gilbert Gonzalez, my brother-in-law and sister, Linda and Bob Rice, my niece, Amy Robledo Brown, my neighbor, my treasurer, my good friend, Rhea DeRozier, and the little guy, Aiden DeRozier, and Miss Kelly Covart, ex-coworker from the parole office. Thank you guys for coming.
Miss Farmer, you go with you next, ma'am.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the voters who turned out to vote, even though I was unopposed, and their voice speaks for the work that I do on your behalf. I do pledge to continue to work for the citizens, not only of Single-Member District 6, but for the quality of life in San Angelo as a whole. San Angelo is a very unique city that I feel privileged to live, work, and have my family here. I want to thank my family for their support so that I have the opportunity to work for you. They hear the good and the bad words out there, and they still support me and know that my intentions are always for the best of San Angelo. A very special thank you to my daughter, Becky Dykes, my son-in-law, Jay Dykes, my son, Don Sharp, and my sister, Loretta Hicks, and my treasurer, Ginger Olson, for giving me their opinions, not always in agreement with me, and advice on some very tough decisions through some very unpopular topics. A very special thank you to Rick Weiss, Lou Escobar, Carl White, Becky Dunn, Shane Kelton, Tina Bonnell, Lisa Marley, Brian Groves, Brian Kendrick, Roland Pena, Ricky Dixon, and James Flores, all of who I have called on repeatedly, time and time again, and a whole host of city staff who work tirelessly because they love this city. The congratulations here goes to you for helping me do this job. So to you, the citizens, it's another 2 years and a whole lot of work that is still to be done. And with each of your voices, we will get it done. And I thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to my family members for attending today.
Mr. Marty.
Wow, I wish I would have went before her. I just have four of my strong supporters. My mom's here, who quite oftenly reminds me that she brought me into this world, and she can take me back out if I don't do like I'm supposed to. And my wife and my son, who are always supporting me no matter what. And then probably my best friend, who is everyone should have a friend like him, John Begno. Very slow to criticize and always quick to compliment. So those are my guests.
Thank you, Marty. And I would like to thank my wife, because had it not been for her, I would never have been able to handle this last election. So she was the one, she is the wind beneath my wings. She was the one that kept me going, and I owe a debt to her that I'll never be able to repay. Also have my son Brian with me today, and my grandson Jake David. Stand up, some people. I want Jake David to stand up. There, my boy. I also owe a great deal of thanks that I will never be able to repay to the Realtors Association. They were very good to me, plus just a number of people. We ran the most disjointed campaign that has ever been ran, but I had people all over town working for me, and it's a debt I can never repay. So I simply say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it for the 2 more years. Thank you. Okay. There has been a request that we pull number 17 to the regular agenda. So I guess at this time we're going to break and enjoy some snacks. It is 9:53. I'm calling a break. Be about 30 minutes. It is 10:16. I call the meeting back to order. And we will now proceed with item number 17, which is consideration of appointment of a mayor pro tem. Do I have a motion, anyone?
I'd like to nominate Johnny Silvas.
Do have a motion to nominate Johnny Silvas as the mayor pro tem. I do have a second. Do I have any council discussion on this?
Rodney?
No council discussion on this? Do I have any public comment on Johnny Silvas as the mayor pro tem? If not, then I will call for the vote. All in favor of Johnny Silvas as mayor pro tem, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
I'm going to abstain from voting.
Put a 6-0 on that one, please, Brian. All right, now it is time for public comment. It's time that the council takes public comment on all items on the regular agenda. Public input on the regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. On public hearing items, public input will be received on each item immediately following the council discussion and prior to any action on the item. Each member of the public should make the remarks from the podium and begin by stating their name. Remarks by each citizen will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes unless waived by a council member for all speaking on that matter. No individual will be allowed to speak more than once on any one subject until every citizen wishing to comment has done so. So we'll start now with public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to approach and make a public comment about anything at this time? Come forward, Carl.
I'd like to make a quick introduction. Mr. Brent Casey is our new recreation manager. We had 70 applications for this position. It was very competitive, and after rounds of interviews, we selected Mr. Casey. He is a 20-year veteran of the United States Air Force. He's had direct experience running recreation facilities and centers on Air Force bases. He's very active with athletics and sports with the military, has been coaching for our programs, basketball programs at the recreation division. He is also an active volunteer in the community, one of the key volunteers for Relay for Life. And I asked a very important person a question about him, and he was described as a gentle giant. So, Mr. Casey.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Welcome, or thank you. It's great to be accepted for this position. I've enjoyed it very much the past 2 weeks. Been getting my feet wet literally in the pool, so it's a good thing. And very much looking forward to serving the citizens when the recreation needs of the city of St. Angelo. So thank you very much.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Yeah, as you can tell, Brent got thrown in at our busiest time, so
Yeah.
he has had not a chance to breathe thus far. So in the fall, he might get to breathe, but right now he's
I can't think of a director we've hired in the last 2 years, including the city manager, that we didn't throw immediately into the fire. So
He's done
that's
great.
just the SOP
Brent-
around here.
Brent, I gotta ask, I gotta mention.
I'm 6'7", sir.
That wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But some folks around town want to expand that pool, so just keep that idea in the back of your head.
Definitely
And
will.
we can run with the idea later on.
Definitely will, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any further public comment at this time? Anthony?
Anthony Wilson, I'm the Public Information Officer, 6 feet, 165. Just in case you were wondering. And I am here at the request of the city manager, just to remind mainly our viewing audience about a number of town hall meetings that we're going to be having very shortly on 2 very significant issues, beginning tonight at 5:30 here in the council chambers at the Convention Center. Our Charter Review Committee will be having the first of 3 town hall meetings to gather public input on the 7 proposed changes to the city charter. You can find out more about those changes at costatx.us/charter review. We will be airing tonight's meeting live on our website at costatx.us/watch, and it will be replayed several times daily on SATV. So that's tonight, and then that will be followed up by a town hall meeting by the Charter Review Committee on Monday, June the 1st, 5:30 p.m. at Lincoln Middle School. If you are wanting one of our Charter Review Committee members to come and present a public presentation to a civic group or a professional group of some sort, if people wanting that will call our office, 481-2727. We'll be happy to facilitate that. On Thursday evening, we'll be having the second of our 7 town hall meetings on our new trash services, which will be launching on July the 20th. The town hall meeting Thursday evening will be at 6 p.m. at Southland Baptist Church. The first meeting that we had at Lincoln Middle School, the general manager of Republic Services led that meeting, did a terrific job in answering questions and explaining how the new services are going to begin. So that will be Thursday evening, and then that will be followed up on Tuesday, May the 26th, 6 p.m. at Glen Meadows Baptist Church. That's in Councilman Fleming's district. The Thursday night meeting will be in Councilwoman Farmer's district. Thursday, May 28th, 6 p.m. at St. Paul Presbyterian. That's in Councilwoman Grindstaff's district. And then 6 p.m. Tuesday, June 2nd at Paul Ann Baptist Church, and that's in Councilwoman Gonzalez's district. So if you'd like more information about the new trash services, you can find that at costatx.us/solid waste or costatx.us/recycling.
Thank you, Anthony. Do I have further public comment? Do I have comment from the council? Do you have anything, Elizabeth?
No, just to say that last evening we had a neighborhood chat, and I'll say it was one of our smaller ones. Anthony was our speaker, so he filled the room quite well. And we have a lot going on in the community. I had to leave SAISD, their board meeting, for my son to get there. So I know that people are busy, but we're going to continue and do it next month, and hopefully have a presentation on animal services. So thanks to everyone, including Farrah Gomez, the principal at Lee Middle School, who hosted us, and everybody at SAISD that lets us use their facilities.
Thank you. Lucy, did you have anything, ma'am?
No, sir.
Okay. Charlotte?
Yes, I had the honor to attend a dinner last week by the Boy Scouts of America, where they gave the award for their Distinguished Citizen of the Year award, and that went to Colonel Charles Powell, filled in for the mayor. As he was at another meeting, it was an absolute honor, and I would like, if we could, at the next council meeting, present him formally the resolution and give it to him, since it wasn't available to read to him. He's an outstanding gentleman who's done a lot of work for the city of San Angelo, making the military base here just one of the family, and it was an honor. On another note, I had several phone calls after last council meeting, and this is not open for a discussion right now. I'm simply going to relay the phone conversations. I had several confused people, not only in my district but in other districts, who did not understand the small section of road on Twin Mountain Drive not going into the capital improvements plan, because the last meeting in June and July, all of the council voted that it should be in a project in that very short portion there that can't be done by the developer because of the school and because of the traffic matters. And these citizens heard the council endorse and support putting that project in the capital improvement plan, and then heard it denied not to go in, and they wanted to know why. I didn't have an answer for them, so I'm just going to lay it out there and tell them I did receive the phone calls and tried to explain to them that it was talked about back in June and July, but had to come forward in a special process to be put on capital improvement. So that was the phone calls, and maybe between now and next meeting, I can get an answer as to maybe why, so I can answer some of these folks. And that was it.
Thank you. Johnny?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I'm reminded, as I see one of my constituents sitting out there, Art Elkins and myself are very much interested in art. I know that Rick Wise and Carl White have reached out to me to have a conversation on the idea of expanding the river improvements east of town from maybe the Celebration Bridge all to Bell Street. So we will be in talks here very soon, and maybe put an item on the agenda of what direction we take, what we can do, because I think it benefits the city as a whole. The river improvements that have been done along Kids Kingdom and all, that's just a diamond in the rough, feather in our hat. So I'm very much interested, as well as a lot of other folks, to see what we can do to continue the improvement along Concho River. So thank you very much.
Marty?
Nothing.
Rodney?
Nothing at this time.
Well, I am going to talk. I've got one thing, and I was going to say this when we swore in our candidates, and I just simply forgot it. But primarily for Lucy Gonzalez, I just kind of wanted to run over our rules and the way we do things here, so that Lucy will have a clear grasp of it. By charter authority, the mayor runs the meetings, and to quote the Apostle Paul, these meetings are going to be ran decently and in order. And that means that we will speak one at a time. That means that no one will speak out when someone else is speaking. That means that no one on this council will blurt out when they get ready to speak, but anyone that wishes to speak will get my attention, and I will put you in line, and I will conduct the meeting and let you speak at the time. That's the way the charter says to do it, and that's the way that we will be doing it. So if anyone on any item has anything that they want to speak about, I promise you, you will get your opportunity to say anything and everything you want to say. However, you will need to get my attention one way or the other. Wave at me, throw something at me, whatever you want to do. I will put you in line, and I will give you the opportunity to speak. One other thing that I want to bring up, and this is something that I've heard from citizens, these microphones are extremely sensitive. If we have to talk to our neighbor, and I know that there are times when one of us will have to speak to our neighbor. If you have to speak to your neighbor, only do it if it's absolutely necessary. Pass notes, because when one speaks to the neighbor, you can hear it in the audience, you can hear it up here, and you can hear it on television. It is very distracting, and it is also extremely disrespectful to whoever is standing at the microphone. So, if anyone on this council needs to talk to your neighbor, don't do it unless it's absolutely necessary. Write them a note, pass a note. That's not disruptive or disrespectful. And just remember how sensitive these microphones are. And that's about all I had to add, but just so that you understand the procedures. And that's all I've got. Any other comment before we move on? Let's move on. Number 18, first public hearing and consideration of adopting an ordinance amending health fees. Morgan Chegwin, you are on, ma'am.
Good morning, council. Before you today, Sandra Villarreal and I developed what we had talked about at council April 21st about really adopting and implementing the fees as it relates to health services. Sandra couldn't be with us today. She had a conflict come up at the last minute, so we'll forge ahead as best we can. The council gave pretty clear consensus about how to proceed with the health services changes, and that was to implement the fees as proposed by staff, excluding any change to the late fee. So that's what's before you today in an ordinance format. The food permit, of course, as we discussed, will go instead of $100 to $150. The seasonal food permit will go from $0 to $100. The 3-day temporary food permit will go from $35 to $50. And the 21-day temporary food permit, and I apologize, I think that's 14-day in the ordinance, will go from $55 to $70. There's one item of note I wanted to make sure that y'all were aware of changed since the last time we discussed was the estimated cost of service, that we really went back to the drawing board at the request of our city attorney's office to make sure that we were including all things as it relates to providing that program and that function. So you'll see the food permit and seasonal food permit increased the cost to provide that service to about $202. 3-day temporary food permit to $230, and the 14-day temporary food permit cost us about $144 to administer. So that's the only change since we last spoke about this item.
All right. We need a motion to adopt.
Move to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Charlotte moved to approve. I did have a second from Johnny. Do I have any further discussion from council? Rodney?
And we discussed this before, but we are going to be working towards moving these up yearly, right, to get to where it is the cost of service.
Yes, sir. For a program.
The reason why we did these, we didn't want to hit it all at one time, right?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think that's wise. Any further comment? Do I have public comment on this item? We do have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please. Consideration of approving a first amended sports complex naming rights agreement between the City of San Angelo and Texas State Bank, and authorizing the mayor and our city manager to execute said agreements. Mr. White.
Yes, sir. We are asking for official approval for the amendment to this agreement. We're also asking for some direction from council as to how to utilize the funds. Our current agreement expires at the end of June. It was for 6 years for $60,000 with Texas Bank. We got $10,000 a year each year, and those funds went into revenue, which helped pay for expenses of the operation of the sports complex. With this amendment, Texas Bank is stepping forward with $150,000 for 10 years, and they've also offered to pay that lump sum up front. So we have the opportunity to perhaps use those funds, all if not some of them, for improvements. So we do ask for official approval of this amendment, but we also ask for your direction on how to utilize the funds.
Charlotte?
I wanted to point out for anyone that's interested out there, in the contract with the Texas Bank, they had the right of renewal. So I just wanted to explain that that's why it didn't go out for FO whatever. That people understood is in the contract they had the right of renewal, which they certainly want to do, and I'm certainly proud of. And I'll make the motion to approve and to include, my recommendation would be to continue to use the monies for the sports complex only.
I'd second that.
Sound like a good motion. Gary, thank you. Do I have further comment, Ronnie?
Carl, how are we doing on bathrooms? I mean, could we apply this to expanding the facilities?
Yes, there's a definite need to add restroom facilities at the sports complex, and we've been talking about how we could do that. Some of these, if not some of these funds could go towards paying for new restrooms.
Yeah.
What we can do is bring that back maybe during the budget cycle. Currently, all the dollars are just used for operational type things at the sports complex. In this case, you're bringing in more money than we were before. So during the budget, you may decide you want us to take this whole 150. One of the things that Texas Bank is doing is they're paying that full amount up front. So you'll have that all at once, where if you want to use that to go toward bathrooms, and we try and do some others, you could do that. But we'll have to make up, in the budget concerning the operations, or you could use a portion of it. So we'll take your direction, Charlotte, and bring it back during the budget cycle to get specific clarification.
Thank you.
That's a good motion. Gary, come forward. Just come up here and let's see you so we can thank you. Texas Bank has been a very good and a very strong partner with us on this. We very appreciate you very, very much.
Well,
and I just
thank
wanted
you.
to say thank you, sir.
And we've been proud of our association with a fine sports complex.
And it is one of the best in the world,
Glad
isn't
we're
it?
going to continue for another 10 years.
Thank you very much.
After 10 years, it'll be someone else's decision to make. But,
We can put bathrooms up and name them after David Peters. Would that work?
That'll work.
Thank you, sir.
I can attest to how much Gary cares about this. His daughter played sports, fast pitch softball, and I've been to older facilities and other facilities with these children. It's wonderful to see this complex now, so maybe your grandchildren and my grandchildren, or now my great-grandchildren, will enjoy the beauty of this complex. It is something for San Angelo.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
y'all.
Hey, Gary, and bear with us, because maybe one day soon we'll get a new road that goes along the
That
path.
would be nice, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further public comment on this before vote? I like Charlotte's motion that we accept this and also apply it to the sports complex. It has been seconded, Ms. Grindstaff. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please. Moving on, item number 20 is consideration of approving the negotiated contract amount to construct the Fire Training Center training tower and related site work, FD 0114, in the amount of $3,446,523, guaranteed maximum price under the CMAR contract with Mid-Tex of Midland Incorporated, approved by council on June 13, 2014, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute Amendment 1 to the existing contract. David Knapp, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. So here we've been working tirelessly getting this thing together, and I think after a lot of work, we've got it where we want it. Just refresh everyone's memory, it's been a while. We're utilizing existing property that the city owned. It's out there behind the animal shelter. It's approximately 11.8 acres, so we've got plenty of room to roam and for Brian to burn things. The facility is about 14,500 square feet. We've got offices, classrooms, exercise room, equipment and engine bays, all, very similar to its normal fire station. We just don't have the living quarters, but it'll serve as a perfect classroom learning environment. All the gear, laundry services will be done out there. So we're setting up a nicer setup than what they have now. And also all the equipment maintenance gets done out there as well. So it'll be kind of a central hub of activity for the fire department. And one of the key elements, obviously, is the new training tower. It's a 5-story tall burn building that they call it, and amazing things that they can do with it. I'm learning more and more about it, but they can, elevator shafts, different burn situations, getting in and out of the buildings from the roof and whatnot. So that'll be, compared to what they have now, a huge improvement, and I think benefit all the communities around as they train them. Just from the site, so here's the aerial right behind the animal shelter, 11.8 acres, right next to the 4-H. And here's a kind of a close-up of the buildings, just an L-shaped basic metal building, but we've got a lot in there, activities going on with parking. I don't have a site plan, but the key element is the burn building that sits out in the middle of the site. A lot of concrete around it so they can pull up trucks from every angle, attack fires as they train. And this is a couple of images of different burn towers. I think ours actually is taller than these, but each level has its own scenarios that they can run activities and training through, so pretty versatile. So the funding for the project, we've got $1.2 million through an EDA grant, and we also currently have banked $400,000 through EMS revenue, which was approved 2 years ago, and that'll continue at $200,000 per year, and that'll help fund some of the debt service. And COSA also has $2.8 million, so it brings our total project funds to $4.4 million. Expenditures and equipment that and commitments that we already have. We've purchased the burn tower off of the buy board, and that's already been ordered. That's bought and paid for. We will have furniture. We'll have other equipment to add to the facility, signage, various technology that goes into the building, landscaping, and some consultant fees. That's about $834,000. Then we have our own contingency separate from the contractor, $160,000 to start with. So that's a total expenditure of $994,000. That leaves us, out of that $4.4 million, a construction budget of $3.4 million. After the first bid from the contractor, they came in at $3.9 million. So we were about $500,000 over budget. So we worked with them. I think most of it was site related. The building came in at pretty close to as we had estimated and budgeted. So, but we worked on value engineering some items. Contractors made some suggestions. We were able to take $470,000 out of the project, and most of it, like I said, it was mostly site work, concrete, that we minimized, narrowed roads, and eliminated some things. So, so we were only about $40,000 shy of that 511. So if we just take that out of our contingency, the 160 down to 119, 457, we can cover the final amount of being over budget.
While you're on that contingency, I might mention that this is a construction manager project, so they bid it, they have to build it for the price they gave us. So we're feeling fairly good about the contingency we have remaining, plus the contractor has a $50,000 contingency built into their bid to start with, so there's some more in there as well.
So with their contingency and our contingency, we have almost $170,000. So with the remaining 119, our hope, and we'll see how the project goes, but there's two alternates that we had put into the project. One was for a parking lot at the animal shelter, as we'll be bringing traffic in and out of the road next to the animal shelter, and there's a lot of parking there. The animal shelter needs parking anyway, but we can build a new parking lot next to the building, and for $31,000, almost $32,000. And then at the end, we'd love to be able to resurface that entire road. So our hope is that out of that contingency, we can cover these two items. And then construction time should be about 8 to 10 months. We're finalizing that, but I know the chief is ready to go. a couple months ago.
And
So-
just to remind everyone, this is if you remember, it's a joint project with Howard College as far as sort of a partnership. Howard's going to do some training there as well, and they helped us in the securing of the grant dollars. So it's kind of a neat community project as well as far as joint training.
We've been working on it two plus years, haven't we?
I know. Yes,
Glad
sir.
to see it finally come to fruition. Charlotte?
What type of water control or reuse or do we have built into the plan, meaning waters that they use to fight the fires, the runoff, is it recaptured and reused? Is that in the plan?
We do not, surprisingly, they don't use as much fire or water on these training exercises as they would on a normal resident fire or whatnot. So it's a limited amount of water, but we are not capturing it. We do have a detention pond that will keep it on site, but we will not reuse it through the trucks or
Yeah, and this one's controlled, like David is saying, with a lot of the natural gas, those kind of things, as far as the burns go. So you'll have flashes come and go, as opposed to some where you pile a bunch of hay in there or whatever to burn. So he's correct that we don't use
But you
the
do
amount of
have a
water.
retention pond for
Yes,
the available?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we could recycle the water at some time in the future.
It's potentially, yes. You know,
If-
you'd have to clean it and, you know, to run it, if you're going to run it through your trucks, obviously,
Right.
you want clean water.
Yeah,
so.
two things. The amount, if you don't use enough to generate, then, there's not a lot to, it soaks in before you need it again. But yes, you'd have to clean it off as well.
Very well. Anyone, Elizabeth?
Is this project in or outside of the city limits?
Inside.
Okay. I think a few meetings back, and actually probably a few months back, we talked about when we bring projects forward that we would at least be able to address, I think, the larger fiscal impact of these, like maintenance,
Okay.
expanded operations. And I know what you're doing here. This is, a bid award, so to speak.
Right.
But Rick goes back and has worked on this project for 3, 4, as long as I've known Rick, I think he's been working on this project.
Not as long as you've known me. That goes back to college.
But, this is, as I said, I understand what this is, but do we have a sense of what additional operating dollars it's going to take for this facility over that one that's currently on the river?
I think I can speak to that, and Brian maybe as well. Brian currently has a budget, of course, for his current facility. We will be vacating that facility. We'll see what happens with those property, whether we put that up for sale or whether that's an area we want to use to connect the park system there or whatever. So in this case, David has designed a much more efficient facility as far as its operation. So I can let Brian speak to it, but I don't think he's anticipating really needing any, if all, additional dollars as far as the operating because of the current budget he has and because of the maintenance they're having to do on the current facility because of his age. So
That's great news, and you've been recorded saying that, so
yeah,
thank you.
and that's why I asked Brian if he wants to come. Don't get me wrong, there will always be additional, that is one of the things I've talked about the city since I've known you, is that from a facility standpoint, a lot of times we don't allocate. And so we need to be doing that year by year by year. We ought to look at it from the facility operations standpoint with Ron Lewis, where you're looking at the buildings as a whole. Not just this individual structure. But yes, he does currently have a budget in hand, and he may be requesting additional dollars, but I don't see those being substantial if he does.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I could just add, the operating impact of this project is in the CIP. I'm having trouble pulling it up just now, but I can send that all to you. It has been submitted.
No,
as
that's
part of
fine. I just, we've said in the past that when we approve new projects, that we want to know what additional financial impacts come from those. So I think that, knowing that the building itself is supposed to be more energy efficient, we know that it might be used more than the current one, but just to have an idea, be thinking of that now rather than later is important.
And I'll have to look back at our initial presentations to council if we covered all of that when we have officially approved the project before.
Do I have further comment from council on this?
Quick question. Go back a slide, I think 864,000, one more. The $834,000 amount down there,
Yes.
landscaping and
Yes.
all. What part of that, how much is it for the consultants? What's the volume of
I think it was about 100,000.
that? So you don't have a breakdown of that?
Not in here.
That's okay, we can get it later, but
Okay.
how much was it?
I can send that to you. All told, I think maybe 120,000 for the consultants.
Is that about the right percentage, or?
Yes.
Well, actually, just so you'll know, Johnny, on this one, we came out even better. David actually did this project in-house as far as the design work. So what he did is he did all the design work as an architect, and then he contracted out for the engineering, those kind of things that we need. So if you look at the overall percentage of the design, this one's going to be way cheaper than what we normally pay because we were able to utilize David to do the in-house design work.
And we use the IDIQ program that we have for the consultants. So one firm's doing MEP, another one's doing structural, another one's doing civil engineering. So, and all of those contracts were, 50,000 or less. All of them were well less than 50,000. So cumulatively, I think we're just right around 100, maybe 110.
And then right above it, the 200,000 per year on the EMS revenue. Is that going, I guess that'll be budgeted every year? I mean, that's coming in, or?
Correct.
Yes,
At least
and
that?
it brings in more than that.
Right.
And what council designated was that portion of the revenue, when Brian brought that fee structure a few years back. So y'all designated a portion of that to go to the debt service. The remainder goes, I'm not sure, but it brings in double that usually, doesn't it?
That's exactly right, Rick, that we levied fees and adjusted fees. We captured 200,000 of the marginal revenue to service debt. However, we didn't issue debt for 2 more years. So we've really banked that money, and it's available to invest in the capital up front. In future years for fiscal year 16 and moving forward, you'll see that $200,000 ambulance revenue specifically funding debt service.
I just find it hard to believe that we capture that much revenue coming in every year.
More than that.
More than that.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Do have a motion to accept as presented and a second. Any further count? Rodney, you or Marty have anything on this? Public comment on this before we vote? Motion has been made that we accept as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please, sir. Number 21 is the first public hearing in consideration of the ordinance of the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administration and Personnel, Article 207, Boards, Committees, and Commissions, Division 3, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Section 207061, Organization and Procedure, by providing for a Zoning Board of Adjustment of 7 regular members and 2 alternate members, providing for nominations by mayor and single-member districts, council members, providing procedures for appeal hearings, providing for filling vacancies, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Rebecca Guerra, you are on, ma'am.
And I will get as quickly as I can. And good morning, council members. Rebecca Guerra, Planning Manager. So this item before you is at the request of City Council to amend the structure of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And so I've given you a kind of bullet point summary of of some of the changes that we are proposing for Chapter 2, which is part of the Code of Ordinances for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So this is really a two-parter. Chapter 2, because it's part of the Code of Ordinances for the entire city, has to be amended first, and if this council approves these changes, then and only then can we bring it back to the Zoning Board of Adjustment so they can change their bylaws. So this is, if you will, step 1 of 2 steps that we need to do in order to implement the changes which you all have brought to staff and ask us to go ahead and do. So it's basically 2 sections of Chapter 2 that are being amended. 2.07, 0.061, and then 0.063. And so just to summarize very quickly, there are 7 changes to the first section. It basically increases the board membership from 5 to 7. The alternates stay at 2. We set up procedures for appointments. We have record-keeping responsibilities which are established in this section. We have a process for expanding the current board from 5 to 7. We have some terms, removals, and vacancy sections that have been added, and then we have a few cleanup changes within that section. And then within .063 of the next section, We have some actions that need to take place prior to appeal hearings, and then we have procedures for all appeal hearings themselves. These procedures are consistent with the previous appeal hearing that we had for a facility on Hill Street, and it was instituted by our legal department, and it was a procedure that worked very well in the running of that particular appeal hearing process. So the action requested is to approve the proposed text amendment and adopt the ordinance on first reading. I've got PowerPoints which show every single section which have been added. So if you all have any questions, I can pull them up on the screen for you to read and for the public to read as you ask them to us. So if you have any questions, we're available for any responses you may require.
As far as what you said thus far, it seems like you've given us exactly what we've asked for. Is there any questions for council? Do you want to see any more? Anyone? Sure. Elizabeth?
Just a question. So generally what you're doing is changing the board makeup, the number that participate, that sit on at any given meeting.
That is correct, ma'am. Generally speaking, we also have some other things involved.
Okay, but in the summary, that's what it says, and now I see a little bit more information right there. So I just want to make sure I'm clear as to how many specific items we're changing.
So if we go through.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to get too
and I'm not
detailed.
going to read it. So you can see that we increase the membership. We set up establishments for how those members are appointed.
Okay.
Because today, believe it or not, it's very unclear how members are appointed.
It's terrible. Yeah, I'm glad we're changing
And so
it.
this basically lays out how they're going to be appointed, and more importantly, how we're going to change this current board's membership makeup to get to that 7. This is just some cleanups. So it establishes the new quorum. It cleans up. The Texas Local Government Code changes every year, so it doesn't make sense to put in section numbers. These are the rules that apply to the running of the board. It's just a repeat and a kind of rephrasing. So these are my cleanups, if you will. And then these are the procedures for how the public appeal hearings will be run. What needs to take place prior to the appeal hearings, and then what needs to take place at the appeal hearings. So that way everybody understands what has to take place at a separate public hearing, because there was some confusion at the Hill Street facility appeal hearing. Nobody knew what was the process. So with the very kind help of the legal department, we've established some major things that need to take place before the appeal hearing ever happens, and then set up an order for how the appeal hearings themselves will be run.
And the appeal hearing is specifically if an individual wants to appeal the decision of the planning director.
It's for any appeal hearing, which could be for a written determination. It could be for a decision from the ZBA. It could be, a decision from an administrative official. It could be for any of the list of appealable items already listed in Chapter 2.
But because the action of the ZBA can only be appealed to a court of record,
You are correct, ma'am.
Okay.
Charlotte?
I just want to be clear, as when we were talking, I thought there was confusion, 5 panels. So we're now going to have 7 plus 2 alternates, or still have 5 and the 2 alternates sit on the panel at each meeting? Which is it?
So what will happen is there will be 7 board members.
Voting.
So it will be, each one of you will be able to appoint 1 member. The mayor will also be able to appoint 1 member. The mayor will also be able to appoint 2 alternates.
Do the alternates attend each meeting so they're up to speed on a subject if one has to abstain or stand out or be set up on the board? Is that a requirement?
They absolutely have the right to attend. It's not required, but they absolutely have the right. And more importantly, staff will always send them all of the items, regardless of whether they attend or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you say that the new process for the appeal requires I hate to use the word appellant, but the person making the appeal to use an attorney, or can someone do so without legal representation?
They can do so without legal representation. What this does is it makes the process completely transparent. There should be no surprises.
Okay.
They will know what to expect.
I just want to make sure that's not necessary.
Questions down here? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll take Johnny's, give you a second. Okay, Johnny makes a motion to approve as presented. Charlotte has seconded, and I like what you've done there, ma'am. Do I have any further comment from council before we go to public comment? Public comment on this item? Come on up, Jim. Do you like this, sir?
with a few reservations, it's a step in the right direction. I'm Jim Turner, a zoning board member, and this is a major improvement. I'm not sure that it's exactly where we need to be, but it's so much better than what we had that we need to at least give it a try. And I think the issues we had here actually highlight something that needs to be done across the board with all our boards and commissions. This one kind of came under fire. We had a situation that happened that nobody had ever thought would ever happen, but it did. And there's a number of these little booby traps with the boards and commissions and what they can do and what they should be doing that deal with things like the structure, interaction between like legal and planning. They didn't get together soon enough in the process to avoid some of these issues. Record keeping was a problem. Training is still something that's going to have to be ironed out. And this is something that you're going to see across the board with all of these boards and commissions. So don't stop here. This is a start for this one board, very important one, but it's not the only one out there. And they all need to have a closer look than really what's been done. It's not just a matter of appointing people and then having them show up. There's a lot more to it than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And we have started visiting with our boards, and Daniel, I'd like for this to continue. I would like for the city council to have a lunch or to have a meeting with every board in our city so that we can see who they are and we can discuss these problems and we can correct things, solve problems before they happen. Yes, ma'am.
And one thing, Mayor, for Mr. Turner to know, we said after or during that time that we wanted to see more training for those boards, and staff is preparing that in our budget. So, Jim, there's more coming. I just wanted him to know that.
Charlotte?
She said it. I just wanted to make sure that we require more training for each of our boards, as well as council has to get updated and refreshed, that we need to see to it that we have that measure and that tool in our tool chest.
Further public comment on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. I forgot to mention that we did bring this item before the ZBA at their last meeting. I truly apologize for not mentioning that. They recommended approval of the proposed changes that you're seeing before you.
Okay. This is first reading. We'll see it again next meeting. Jim?
Yes, sir.
And it's just to emphasize on the training, it's good that we're going to be doing more training for the board members. One of the things that also showed up, there was a training problem with some of the staff that was supporting the board members. It's a training problem across the board that's not just the board members. So, this specific case, the support staff needed some training under fire in order to actually get us to the point where we could do the right thing in a way that was capable to bring it to a good resolution. They didn't have the training they needed also. Thank you.
We'll work on it. Do have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please. All right, let's go on now to item number 22, which is first public hearing and consideration of an ordinance annexing to San Angelo city limits certain property situated immediately west of San Angelo, generally located in the northwest corner of Arden Road and FM Highway 2288, specifically described as approximately 44.821 acres of land out of the BS&F Survey 5, Abstract number 101 and AB&M Survey 3, Abstract number 24, Tom Green County, Texas, and said 44.821 acre tract also being out of the certain 917.9 acre tract described and recorded in instrument number 703583, official public records of Tom Green County, Texas, and the said 44.821 acre tract being more particularly described as meets and bounds in Tom Green County, Texas. Ms. Guerra?
Yes, sir. So this is the Arden Road annexation. This is just for everyone's education. This is the fourth step of a five-step process for any annexation that happens within the state of Texas. So, to refresh everyone's memory, we've already had an acceptance of a petition and 2 public comment hearings as required by the local government code, so that the public may have an opportunity to speak. This is the first opportunity, aside from the petition, that the city council has an opportunity to vote on this matter in order to move it forward. So this is the first reading of the annexation ordinance associated with this request. If this reading does not pass today, there will be no second reading and the process stops. And there are procedures laid out in the Texas Local Government Code for what happens afterwards. So this is the first reading of the annexation ordinance associated with the request. So to reiterate, I'm sorry, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. So just to reiterate what the mayor indicated, this is a little over 44 acres. It's located on near the intersection of Arden Road and FM 2288. It is in the ETJ, but if annexed, it is likely to go into single-member district number 6, Councilwoman Farmer's District. The future land use of this site, as you can see before you, is indicated as commercial and neighborhood. That is, the yellow is neighborhood, the red is commercial. Here is a zoning map, obviously. It's in the ETJ, so there is no zoning. But if annexed into the city, will receive an automatic zoning designation of ranch and estate. This is a copy of the major thoroughfare plan for the area. The light blue colors represent minor collector roads, and the purple color represent arterial roads. I'm sorry, let me go back. The dash line represent potential collector roads. So the solid lines are already existing arterial roads. And all of these maps are in your staff reports. This is the utility map, which shows the water lines as well as the hydrants. These are in your staff reports as well. And this is a copy of the approved annexation plan, which shows the proposed site designated as being identified as intermediate in the city's approved annexation plan. So what does intermediate mean? From the date of approval of this annexation plan in 2009, it was designated for annexation within the next 5 to 20 years from the date of that approval. So today's date would make that fall squarely within that intermediate time frame. Notifications were sent out for this site for the first reading and the second reading of this annexation ordinance. It was also publicized in the Standard Times on April the 29th. Certified mailings were also sent to the utility companies seen before you, as well as the ISD twice. So the Texas Local Government Code has very specific requirements for how a city may annex, particularly for voluntary annexations. These are the criteria that they must meet. We contacted the applicant's representative prior to the petition being read by City Council to discuss with them bringing in additional properties, which would be more contiguous to the properties initially being and currently being proposed for annexation, as well as connecting to the properties already annexed within the city at the immediate corner of Arden and 2288. So we contacted them prior to the petition coming in twice, and then twice after the second public comment hearing that took place at this city council to reiterate council's concerns regarding those additional properties. So the action requested today is to approve the proposed annexation and adopt on first reading the annexation ordinance. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have.
Do y'all want to go ahead and listen to public comment? I know we've got public comment on this, and then I know that you have some concerns, Elizabeth.
So ma'am, I'm going to put up the slide that you
City
can
limits
be able to.
slide.
Okay, so I'll leave the annexation plan, or do you want the future
Whatever
land use
is-
plan?
That black line is the existing
Yes,
city
ma'am, and you can see
Perfect.
in this corner right here, it's very hard because we went in as close as we could. This is where that's that corner right there at Arden 2288, which is actually in the city limits.
Do we have public comment on this? I know we have the proponent here. Did you want to speak before we discuss council? And I know there is some, and identify yourself, but there is some question as to the annexed part that we're doing. Would you like to explain why you're just asking for this particular section, sir?
Sure.
And you are David
I'm
Jensen.
sorry, my name is David Jensen. I'm the owner of the property, and we plan on developing this section that we've requested annexation. Developing is a tough business. Market forces move and change, and it's very, very expensive long-term planning, and just in the studies we've done, the engineering, this is what works for us right now. You know, we'll probably over time annex hopefully hundreds of acres, but you know, this is what works for right now. It's what we have a plan for. we just would like to leave as much flexibility as possible for, for the market. There's lots of areas in San Angelo that are completely circled around holes that haven't been annexed, and all those for a reason. So we would just, this is the plan we've presented over all this time, and I guess that's all I know how to say is that this is what works right now, and likely we'll be coming back to request additional annexation over time. So.
It is a voluntary annexation,
Yes,
and
sir,
this
it
is
is,
what you
yes.
propose that we annex. I have
Yes.
no problem with that. Thank you, sir. Any questions for him before he sits down? Thank you, David. Any other public comment on this item before we move on? All right, let's open it up to council discussion. I know that you have some concerns, Elizabeth.
I get to start?
You can
Lucky
start.
me. David, I'm always interested in us capturing development within the city limits, and I think that's the smartest way for a municipality to develop, as long as it's done in a rational and kind of methodical way without leapfrog kind of development, which our comprehensive plan actually speaks against. So my issue with this is not further development of residential or commercial properties, because I think this is as the plan speaks, is a natural extension of the city. However, I think that the configuration that's being presented is problematic, and so my preference would be that it be done more as a block of land and not a flag, where it has a what is the width of that, Rebecca?
If I'm not mistaken, it's about 50 feet wide. It's about 50 feet wide, yes? A little bit, between 50 and 60 feet wide. Enough for a road and to connect, so it's about 50 to 60.
Yeah,
There's a copy of it in your staff report, ma'am.
I know, but I can
Yes, ma'am.
tell you I can't pull all of this up. I'm having problems. But I think that what the city should be doing, and not necessarily what works for you right now, as you've said, is to do what is in the best interest of the citizens and of the city long-term, especially with regard to the provision of utilities. So I would like to see more contiguous property to the existing city limits and not annexation in this configuration as presented.
Further comment from council? Charlotte?
I don't have a problem with it. To me, it does connect, trying to look to the future, watching that area develop out there. I would just soon that we were annexing all the way out to the blue line on this for reference on both sides of the road. And I would also like to see us annex all the way out to Buffalo Heights, and I'll tell you why. It is water. I don't believe that it is proper or that we can sell water to individuals to sell outside of the city limits. I believe that it has to be in the city limits in order to sell that water. And my concern is if we're going to have growth, and we were assured that we had enough water for this growth, that we need to annex it into the city as soon as possible so that we can grow in the future. And therefore, I don't have a problem with it.
Rodney?
One correction, I think you probably meant Highland Range instead of Buffalo Heights, because Buffalo Heights is...
No, I meant Buffalo Heights. I want to spread all the way around that way. And on the inside, both directions I said, didn't I? I thought I said in both directions, the blue, in both directions, it go as far as Buffalo Heights, which would include Highland Range. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, Highland Range, I have the problem with that because I don't think it's really legal what we are doing with providing water to Highland Range at this point. We don't provide water to Buffalo Heights. This is a voluntary action that this gentleman is bringing before us, and I'm totally in agreement with it. We just looked at this very same scenario on the east side of town out by the landfill, and I don't think they went through with it, but it was going to be the same type of deal where it was going to go down the street and then it went around. It went around that Sprocket place, those guys, the company out of Fort Worth. It went around them. So it's the same type of deal where it's a voluntary thing. They asked for it, they want it to be done, and I feel quite confident that he's probably is going to come back to us in the next 5 years and ask for more to be brought in. So I think it's up to us in my opinion, to allow him to do what he wants to do with his property at this time. And if it so be it in the future, if he wants more, then he'll bring it back to us.
Well said. Johnny, do you have something?
Rebecca, I was just, it was described as a flag, but I don't get the idea of if you want to call it the stick of this flag. How wide is that? Is that 60?
So it's between 50 to 60 feet wide in order for a roadway to be built, an interior drive, if you will, to be
Interior
built.
drive, okay. I guess I missed that part.
Further comments on this?
I have a few more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you remind me what the property owner controls, how much land?
So if we look on the future land use map, you can see much of the property running immediately south up until Arden, and some of the property, well, it's basically every color that you see in front of you. I hate to put it to that way,
Okay.
because I hate using those words, but if you look at the pink, the yellow, and the red, that is the property that is owned by Mr. Jensen. And so he's choosing out of these colors to do the red and the green, the red and the yellow in this flag configuration.
David, do you have a long-term plan for all of this? Okay. I mean, that makes me feel better because, and before I came on the council, there was a lot of concern about man camps and development that we wanted to push out of the city. The thing is, when you do that, if you don't find a place for everything, you push it out and it becomes someone else's neighboring problem. So I'm not trying to make you feel excluded. I don't want anyone else to feel excluded. I think that there is, a variety of uses that we never contemplated 10 years ago or 15 years ago when we were talking about planning. But I think that everything should have a place. And so I know that that is an issue in this area. And so I appreciate what you do. And I look forward to seeing you do more of it, is what I should say. So I look forward to that time.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Take Charlotte's motion, I'll take Johnny's second. Any further comment from council? Further public comment? Motion has been made, we accept it as is presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one. Let's see, number 23. This would be the first public hearing and consideration of an introduction of an ordinance and authorizing abandonment at a variable width portion of 8,295 square feet of the unimproved public right-of-way of Ben Ficklin Road, extending 325.68 feet south from the southeast corner of South Bryant Boulevard and South Jackson Street, and more specifically being an area of 8,295 square foot of land out of the right-of-way of Ben Ficklin Road and being adjacent to the replat of Lot 2 of the replat of Track 1, Century Park Addition. You are on again.
Thank you, sir. This is the first of two right-of-way abandonments for Ficklin Road, Ben Ficklin Road. This first one is a cleanup, if you will. When I first came to the city, we were reviewing case files, quite frankly, to help me learn about the city. And we discovered in that review that there was an error done by previous staff in terms of the calculations of the fees and, quite frankly, of the acreage of the property associated with the previous abandonment. So this is a cleanup coming before you. You should have seen this before. This should be very familiar to you. So it is on the corner of Ben Ficklin and Bryant Boulevard. It's in the Rio Vista neighborhood. It is in single-member District 1, Councilman Fleming's district, and it's 0.19 acres. As you can see, the request is an abandonment of a portion of Ben Ficklin, and the zoning designation is neighborhood commercial. Here's a survey, the revised survey, different from what you saw last year. This is the correct acreage and is associated accordingly in the ordinance. So staff is recommending approval. You all approved this in January of 2014. We have the correct meets and bounds. They've already paid the assessment fee, so they've already been charged that. The difference was very negligible, so we're going to go ahead and take that fee. And it requires a new ordinance so that they may file a quitclaim deed and for the applicant to replat that land into the existing property for them to be able to develop. 4 notifications were mailed out within 200 feet. There was 1 response in favor and 1 response in opposition. This was inadvertently left off the O drive. We thought it was included. I have provided copies for all of you in front of you. And the Planning Commission recommended unanimously approval of this request. So the action requested today is to approve the partial street right-of-way abandonment for Ben Ficklin, subject to 3 conditions of approval and adopting the ordinance on first reading. These are the 3 conditions of approval, and they're also in your staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have.
So really, all we're doing is just squaring up a corner.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Rodney,
creative.
this is yours. You want to take it from here, buddy?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. We did this down the street too. We had several of them that were further north of this area that were just the same as this, that were done in the past. I move for approval.
Second.
Do have a motion to approve as presented. I do have a second. Any other council comment on this item? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one. Number 24 is first public hearing, consideration of introduction of an ordinance authorizing abandonment of a variable width portion of a 10,182 square feet of the unimproved public right-of-way of Ben Ficklin Road, located approximately 930 foot northeast of the intersection of South Bryant Boulevard and South Jackson Street, and immediately east of a 1.4 acre tract within the H. Hornburg Survey, number 175.
Again, Rebecca Guerra. As the mayor alluded, this is .238 acres at Bryant Boulevard in South Jackson in the Rio Vista neighborhood, again in Council Member Fleming's district. This site may look very, very familiar to you, as it is the site very close proximity to the proposed Super Walmart. The request is an abandonment of a partial street right-of-way, so let's stop there. This is not for the abandonment of the paving or of the road. This is simply for a request of the abandonment of the unpaved portion of a piece of Ben Ficklin Road. And so the zoning on this site is general commercial and heavy commercial, as is the zoning across this island, if you will, between Ben Ficklin and Bryant Boulevard. This is a survey of that piece of property that's being requested, that right-of-way that was given over. It is approximately 25 feet wide. So staff's recommendation is for approval. Now, Ben Ficklin, as many of you may know, today, it was previously Highway 87. Today, the right-of-way has been platted at 100 feet. So each property owner on both sides today exists as 50. Both property owners on either side have given over 25 feet for the expansion of Ben Ficklin. Now, there are no utilities within this right-of-way, and Ben Ficklin exists paved at 50 feet wide. It extends 50 feet wide from this side, from the Walmart site, all the way through past the bridge. Now, the bridge is built at 50 feet wide. So if Ben Ficklin were ever to be expanded to its full 100 foot, that bridge would have to be widened as well. And that can be a very costly and time-consuming process, which may, quite frankly, not happen. When you expand a roadway to its full 100-foot width, that is to create an arterial, you're going to have a lot heavier traffic. Ben Ficklin, particularly that bridge, was not meant to carry that much traffic and really operates today as a local road. And so, since there were no utilities in the right-of-way, the expansion of that 2-lane bridge would be pretty problematic in the future, should we ever want to expand it to 200 feet. And there are no plans in the CIP identified for the improvement of this right-of-way. After reviewing with multiple staff members, ranging from fire to police, all the way through to engineering services, staff members agree that keeping the right-of-way at 50 feet is a smart and prudent move to make at this point. This is the concept plan for Walmart. So many of the questions that staff members had was, how is this going to affect? Because if you can see, this is Ben Ficklin right here, and this is the access that they are proposing to come off and touch Ben Ficklin for their delivery or for their truck routes. So, and that was deliberately done in order to move that truck traffic away from Jackson. So one of the biggest questions we had as staff when reviewing this request is, how is that going to affect this entrance? Well, this entrance, which touches Ben Ficklin, was never meant to be their main access. It's always meant to be a periphery off Bryant. So truck traffic was never meant to be shuttled off into Ben Ficklin. It was always meant to access in and out through and connecting to Bryant Boulevard. As I said, that bridge is very limited in the amount of traffic it can receive and the amount of weight it can receive. So it was never anticipated for Walmart or any delivery truck, let me just say any delivery truck for any commercial use, to be able to use Ben Ficklin for that purpose and run it all the way through. So I wanted to bring this before you because this is probably the single biggest question that we had and that you likely may have in terms of future development in this area. So 5 notifications were mailed out within 200 feet. We have received 0 responses in favor or in opposition. So the action requested is to approve the partial street right-of-way abandonment of this portion of Ben Ficklin, subject to 4 conditions of approval, and adopt the ordinance on first reading. And these are the conditions of approval that are also contained within your staff reports. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have.
Rodney?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Do have a motion to approve. Do have a second from Ms. Farmer.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Any other comments on
I
council?
have a quick.
Yes, Johnny?
Is this just to accommodate the upcoming Walmart or?
No, sir. This is to accommodate a property owner which is adjacent to that segment. Right now, they would have 2 25-foot setbacks, both off Ben Ficklin and Bryant. By giving them this additional acreage, if you will, it will allow them to have a more cohesive development and, quite frankly, be able to build a better product.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
What concerns me, and I'm going to vote for it, I agree that it needs to be done, but what does concern me is you mentioned the truck traffic, the deliveries. There already is a considerable amount of truck traffic in that area because of the Stripes store, at the Y, that then Ben Ficklin goes across South Bryant, and Ben Ficklin comes around. That's the old highway and goes back to the river. There's a considerable amount of truck traffic in that area. Our road is just X wide, and the customers, as you say, the public out there, they buy their land and they improve it, and then there's a gap of 5 to 10, 12 feet that the road doesn't meet. The asphalt literally does not meet their pavement, their parking lot. And with the truck traffic on damp days, and there's been a lot, it does cause considerable damage to the ground area. So I'm thinking on the side over there at the bridge is not wide enough, and the ground area, I'd like to avoid any truck traffic down through there to stop that from happening on Ben Ficklin like it's happening on the west side or south side of Ben Ficklin.
And one of the unintended results from this request was, to our knowledge, now we have opened up a forum for staff to discuss future changes to Ben Ficklin and providing a periphery road from Ben Ficklin all the way through connecting to South Chadburn Street. And it's something that we're talking about, we're in discussions with for future development across that PD, which you all may remember was approved for RVs and mobile homes. So this has generated a lot of discussion in staff and quite frankly has made us re-examine the major thoroughfare plan to see what alternate routes can come up with to help out, if at the very least, emergency vehicles to be able to access that side.
And we could put some weight limit signs on that. There's got to be some weight limits on that bridge. If the weight limits were not, if it's not capable, we could put some weight limit signs. We could keep the trucks off of Ben Ficklin that way, couldn't we? Can't we, Shane?
I'm getting a yes.
There are weight limit signs now?
I think there are weight limits on there already.
Well, that we can
Enforce
further enforce that.
Yes, sir.
All right, public comment on this item before we vote. Further council comment before we vote. Motion has been made to accept as presented. It has been seconded. Ms. Grind, staff, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 7-0 on that one. Number 25 is first public hearing and consideration of the introduction of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of San Angelo, Texas, Chapter 10, Traffic Control, Article 1003, Operation of Motor Vehicles, Division 4, Specific Street Regulations, Section 1003.091, One-Way Streets and Alleys, by adding a new subpart 4.3 to subsection B, to provide that Gillis Street be designated one-way south to north between College Avenue and 3rd Street, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Interim City Manager Rusty Pale.
City Manager.
That's right.
City
What'd I say?
You promoted
no,
him.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
He is rocketing up.
Can I get a pay raise with
Let me
that,
go
too?
back. Let me go back and change that. Let me rephrase it. That would be the interim city engineer, Rusty Pale.
That's correct.
Yes, I've just demoted you.
All right. On Gillis Street here, it's just due east of City Hall. They're proposing, Gillis Street is currently a two-way street going in the north and south direction from College Avenue to 3rd Street to the north. And what we're proposing is to change this to a one-way street going in the south to north direction from College Street to 3rd Street. And this is to better help the traffic flow for the proposed Performing Arts Center being developed right now. Currently, we've sent out 7 notifications to adjacent property owners to get Gillis Street, and we have received 2 letters of, everything's good to go. They are in support of that. Some of the conditions that we've put on this approval is that to maintain 9-foot wide parallel parking along the west side of Gillis Street and on the east side. On the west side, it would go from the entire length of Gillis Street from College Avenue to 3rd Street. And on the east side, it would just be within the blocks of from College to 1st and then from 2nd to 3rd Street. We also, one of the second conditions was to provide a 20-foot wide emergency access lane. And they're able to maintain that through the majority of Gillis Street, except for there right at the Performing Arts Center, where it necked down. They're proposing to change up the curb in that area, and it'll neck down to 17 feet. And we've shown that to the fire chief and, amongst other city staff, and everybody's in support of that being necking down to 17 feet there. It shouldn't be a problem. I've got a further slide that'll explain that here in a second. And then finally, the last condition we had was to, all costs associated with striping and new signage would be incurred by the developer, and then the city would help them to actually have those installed. This is the just a layout of the Performing Arts Center. On the south side of the drawing here is 1st Street. On the west side is Gillis Street, and then on the north is 2nd Street. And as you can see here, this is where along the Performing Arts Center, they're changing up the curb line. The main reason for this is so that they can, when they have events at the Performing Arts Center, that people can drop off, pull in, drop off folks, and then they can turn around and go park on the parking lot to the north of the Performing Arts Center or within, around the City Hall area. With that said, city staff moves to approve this change in direction of traffic flow. Do y'all have any further questions?
Johnny, this is in your area. Take it.
I don't have any problem with it. I do have a question. Why all the way to 3rd Street? What's the reasoning behind all the way to 3rd? I was thinking maybe 2nd, but 3rd?
It just to move traffic more cleanly through that area. That way there's not any confusion as to which part of the street is one way or two way. It's a much more clean process through there.
Are we doing anything to accommodate parking for the neighbors to the east?
The neighbors to the...
I saw a little parking lot on the north side of their building.
To the east?
To the east of the...
Chadburn?
To the east of the Performing Arts Center.
Chadburn.
Lansover Street Engineering Services. Currently, during the construction period, for them to do the closures along Gillis, we did require that they provide a temporary parking for the shelter there. And they did allow for a cliche lot as an interim process strictly during construction. After the construction is over, they're not supposed to be continuing to use that lot. That is one of the reasons why we do have the 9-foot required parking lane all along the west side of Gillis, was to keep that parking availability for those individuals.
Good. Okay. That was one of my concerns is...
And they were one of the letters of support on this conversion as well, so.
Okay. I have no problem. I'm moved to approve this idea.
Second.
Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second? Any further council comment on this? Public comment on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one. Number 26 is discussion and any action in connection thereto regarding the annual fee review.
Good morning again. We are continuing with the discussion of the fee review that was conducted this year. As you recall, in earlier this meeting, we've begun discussions with regards to health services and Fairmount Cemetery. We're continuing today with code compliance and engineering. So we wanted to bring to you any items of note or items for discussion as it relates to those. Then the last lingering item will be the fees related to planning and development services, which we hope to bring to you June 2nd. So the item from engineering services, there is one fee before you for consideration, which is a speed hump installment fee. Some of you may remember that there is a fee on the books for a speed hump study fee. This would be to actually levy if there is warranted an installment of a speed hump. So just to go through the process which we've indicated, there is an estimated cost of service of just over $6,100 to install a speed hump. For something like this, which there is a public safety component, we would not expect 100% cost recovery. We could expect 50% or so cost recovery. So what's before you today is a potential to charge $3,000 in the event that we do install a speed hump at the request of a citizen or resident or neighbor. The financial impact is proposed at this time at zero, really. We do not have a lot of activity for this type of service, for this type of function. So when you look at the volume versus the proposed fee, there really is no financial impact to the fund in that way. When we look at survey data, the city, I believe, of Abilene is the only city really charging a fee in this way, and they're charging between $1,500 to $2,300. And we're just not seeing that as it relates to our costs. The cost of the speed hump alone is the largest part of that $6,100. So that's why before you today is the $3,000. Of course, any change or implementation would require any follow-up adoption, whether it's an ordinance, a change to our policy. There would be continued discussion about how to proceed with this service specifically. If we take no action today, for example, we may have discussions during budget preparation as it relates to this. We do not have money budgeted currently to install speed humps, so there may need to be discussion about how to recoup our costs or how to allocate funds for that. And of course, I have Russell Pell available to answer any questions about the program itself.
I have questions.
I do too.
Who's going to start? Elizabeth?
I have a thought. My thought is that if the speed hump is warranted, per se, do you use that term with regard to speed humps, Russell?
Correct, yeah, and that, as we go further into this, we would, need to set some, some boundaries as far as, or actual steps of requirements. If we do a speed study and then actually determine that a speed hump is needed, that's more or less things that we need to bring back to council. We're more or less looking at direction as far as the fee at this point. So, we do need to have some measures in there to see if it's needed, and, we can't just put speed humps all over town.
Right. Mayor, my concern is I don't want to talk about the fee for just a minute.
Okay.
If a speed hump is needed in a certain place because it is warranted by the traffic volume or the speed in a residential area in particular, I would want to see us place the speed hump there like we would a stop sign or a yield sign or anything else that you think makes our neighborhoods more safe.
Right.
I certainly don't want a speed hump to be based on someone's ability to go buy a speed hump from the city.
Right.
Because that's, when you move traffic off of one area, you redirect it to another. So to me, that's just moving the problem into someone else's area who can't buy a speed hump from the city. So personally, I would like to see I guess maybe there be a processing fee if individuals think that there is a problem where they might have to pay that if it's not warranted. But I don't want us to be in a position to buy traffic control devices. I don't think that's good public
and that's kind of
policy.
where the $100, we have to do a speed volume analysis before we even approach that, and that's where I guess the $100 may come into play as far as an assessment fee.
Right. I like the idea of people having to put up some money so that it's not arbitrary and without.
Right. We do get a lot of requests for this, and as soon as
Yeah.
they hear that there is a fee, it
Right. And
goes under.
But if it's a real problem, I would rather see it looked at like anything else and not purchased. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnny?
And I was going to say a lot of the same thing that Elizabeth said, because even the speeds, there's got to be a study first.
Correct.
So if I've got residents on 21st Street, and from Main Street going east, that say there's cars going by there 50 miles an hour to the Bradford Elementary area, and the question was brought to me, how do we get this looked at? I didn't know the dollar amount required of the speed study. So if I have a gentleman requesting that, then he has to pay for you guys to go and lay that.
Correct. Yeah, it's there again, it's not really necessarily we're not recouping any cost on it. It's just more of an assessment fee to get it.
Okay.
Get it
And
done.
then-
Because we a lot of those strips that we put out actually get stolen a lot of times, which is kind of weird. But
So then the speed hump install fee, is that what we're looking at, 1,500 to 2,300?
no, sir. We're proposing 3,000.
So then who pays for that?
The individual that requested
Lord
the
have
speed hump.
mercy. Okay. And the reason I ask is because a number of years ago, we requested a speed study done on Foster Road. And I remember Clint Bailey came up here and they gave us all their analysis and what they came up with and all. And then I asked them, well, who paid for that? Silence. The proponents of that idea didn't pay for it. I think we recouped the charge. So if we're handling these situations, double standards, I have a concern with that. But just for transparency, those folks that are requesting need to know they have to pay.
Correct.
I didn't realize they would have to pay for even the $3,000. I can understand the study, but I didn't understand the $3,000 fee that's being proposed.
Right.
That's a lot of bucks.
Correct. I mean, each individual speed hump is, like Morgan said, is a little over $6,100. And that's just for the speed hump. That's not for the maintenance and the long haul of the actual speed hump in itself. So
maybe the speed study would be the first thing to do.
Correct. That's
warranted.
the first thing. And what I would like to see is some type of mechanism, within the ordinance or something that like Ms. Grindstaff was saying, is that, we don't want just anyone to be able to, that can fork over the money to buy it. We need we need to come up within the ordinance, some actual triggers that can actually still, have an individual can have one be put in place.
Just to educate the public, what is the number of vehicles that have to travel through there on a 24? I've heard different numbers, so what
Typically, it's more of a speed. It's once you start, it's based on the speed of the volume of the percentile going through that area. It's not necessarily based on the volume of traffic. Once you get over the 85th percentile of speed, if you have so much, traffic over that 85th percentile, then that's what triggers an actual speed
So is
hump.
it a radar that's put out there for the study, or what?
No, these strips, you can actually measure speed with them.
Okay. That's step one. Okay, now I know.
Charlotte?
I certainly agree with the $100 assessment fee, and I don't have a problem with the $3,000 fee, provided we have a guideline that states that before you can buy one, it's got to meet a certain number of the warrants. And if it's over another certain number, it exceeds warrants, then it should be done by the city as a safety service item, and the individual
Sure.
wouldn't pay the $3,000. That's
Right, but
would
they'd still be with the $100.
that would be a burden of the city to have to do.
Correct.
But I would like to see those guidelines to show where those breaks would be.
Right, that's more or less going to be our next step, is to
Okay.
come up with those guidelines.
Rodney?
Again, I agree with them on this. The $100 is perfectly fine because otherwise we'd have everybody coming out of the woodworks asking for these speed bumps. But I don't agree with charging the $3,000. If we do the study and it shows it as a safety concern, I think the city should be paying for it. And there's, all over the city, there's a lot of areas that probably would need these, and the people, a single resident could not afford these at all.
Right.
So
I guess where we could put in the measures is, if it, like Charlotte was saying, if it definitely meets the requirements of needing, then the city could pay for that speed hump at that point. But say if it's a marginal, we're close to that 85th percentile, like, of being within speed limits, then that's where the $3,000 could come in place. I mean, that's where we're seeking direction on.
Well, my opinion on this is if it doesn't meet that 85th percentile, then you don't need a speed bump.
Right.
It's either you need it or you don't need it. It's not a maybe need it.
Right.
Johnny?
Russell, for the viewing public, explain the 85th percentile, because a lot of folks wouldn't know that.
Right. So if you got 100 cars going through there and 85% of them are over the speed limit, and I may be explaining this wrong,
That's good.
is,
It's warranted.
that warrants the 85th percentile.
And I feel for I'll finish with this. I feel for those folks that are very concerned about the children around the school neighborhoods, because surely a life of a child is worth more than $3,000. And that's where my concern comes in.
Right.
If it's warranted, I think, like somebody said, it's no different than the stop sign.
That's right.
To us, the safety is of the utmost importance. So
Correct.
I'll finish with that.
Elizabeth?
I can tell you from my neighborhood, Bryant Park area, there are speed humps on, I won't say the street, but all it does is push that same problem to the next street. So I'm not anti, I just think that we need to be very careful, and should not be based on a resident's ability to pay, because I think they do create a problem for someone else. When Avenue J when there were stop signs put on Avenue J a few years ago at that 5-way intersection, it was my understanding that Avenue L was also to be studied. I happen to live on Avenue L. I'm going to disclose that. But this issue actually came up in one of my neighborhood meetings. A resident who also lives on Avenue L wanted to know the status of examining Avenue L because, again, when we slowed down Avenue J, we pushed traffic over to L. So at some point, if the city manager could let us know the status of that, I don't know what happened to the rest of that project.
Right. I sure don't either. I've only been in this position for a month.
And you're doing a fabulous job.
But I'd be
it's
happy
just
to
that
look into
For
it.
every action, there is a opposite reaction, so I just want us to be careful.
You've
From
only
what?
been- You've
Go
only
ahead.
been in it for a month, and for 5 seconds, you were the city manager.
You were a
No,
city
but-
manager, 20 minutes, assistant.
20 minutes.
This is a rocketing career,
Yeah.
isn't it?
From what I'm hearing here is we don't have enough information to make a decision on this today. And
Okay.
I'd like for you to bring a little more back so that we've got something concrete to look at before we start voting.
You bet.
Does everyone agree with
can
me
do that.
there?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks,
All
Russell.
right, thank you.
Are you through, Morgan? We got another one.
Got one more.
Okay.
The next item is in the Code Compliance Division. We have before you today related to junk and trash abatement. Currently, we charge $100 per load for junk and trash abatement of properties. We really operate that in two ways. We may come with a 6-yard dump truck, which Code Compliance owns that piece of equipment, or we may need have a bigger job, which would require a 12-yard dump truck. So we have to borrow that from another city division. There is an additional cost related to using a 12-yard dump truck, and it is related to having a more skilled driver. It does require a CDL, whereas the other does not. And there is, of course, greater depreciation on the more expensive vehicle. And so we have done the assessment of the estimated cost of service, which is really what's driving this recommendation, that we currently charge $100 per load for a 6-yard dump truck load. the cost to really provide that would be $373. So one potential item would be to go to $200 per load on the 6-yard dump truck and to $400 per load on the 12-yard dump truck, since the cost of that service is greater at $573. As far as the financial impact, about half of these types of abatements are able to utilize the 6-yard dump truck. So that impact would be the marginal of $100 increase for $15,000 impact to the division's budget. For the 12-yard dump truck, that would be a $300 increase, and that would yield about a $45,000 increase to that revenue stream. Other cities don't really charge the fee in this way. They do charge an abatement fee, but they don't break it out in this way. So we don't have data to support. So as I stated, the information really driving this is related to the estimated cost of service. And as I stated, we don't currently make a distinction between how we charge for this. Whether we come with a 12-yard dump truck or a 6-yard dump truck, we're charging $100 per load under the current fee structure. And it would certainly be at the manager's discretion to decide what size dump truck is needed. For example, if someone wanted to say, please send the 6-yard dump truck because I want to pay $200 per load. If the job is big enough where it requires the 12-yard dump truck, we would make that recommendation as staff for that item. And with that, if you have any questions about the specific function program, how it works, James Flores is here available to support on that.
Rodney?
Normally, this is for cleanup of abandoned houses or dilapidated houses. Is that correct?
A little bit. It's typically, the bigger percentage of this is non-compliance. So not necessarily abandoned houses. The majority of the book of business is people that are notified of a violation and they don't comply with the expectation of ordinance. This is a remedy to, versus court, this is a remedy to comply the case.
So as just a resident here in town, this would be a super good deal if I had a junked up yard.
Absolutely.
Instead of me having to call an individual company to come out and clean, which really what should be done, we're offering them a discounted rate. I don't agree with this one at all. I think we should take it all the way to the $370. Our costs should be covered in this thing completely. Or they can go to the free market out there and see if there's a cheaper rate out there. I believe that that would be the easiest thing to do.
Sure. And I think this particular issue, in its defense, will require or should require some additional communication with operations in the hallway. We touched base on it, and it ate up the last hour and a half of our time because it is very intricate. We still aren't recouping cost by any of these fees at all because we're not associating the tonnage that is landing at the landfill. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's very intricate. It's something simple to implement, but it's up to you guys.
But this is something that we're giving away services.
Sure.
And it's not fair to all the other residents. Actually, what's happening is a lot of residents are paying for a couple of people that are not taking care of their stuff.
Sure.
So that's what's happening. And, I think we should charge even more than what you're saying is let them go to the free market to clean it up if they have to do that.
Well, and again, the alternative is, going to court, and your fees are a whole lot higher in that capacity than the city coming in and remedying the situation. But again, I just want the understanding that even at these rates, it's not a recoupable cost. A 6-yard dump truck holds anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 pounds. You run that across the scales at $28 a ton, plus the man hours, plus the fuel, plus everything else. So, and inevitably, some of these abatements are 12-yard dump trucks, and they're 10 to 20 trucks abating one property.
Right.
So it's actually one of them that you personally know about. So.
This is after you've exhausted all efforts to contact the property owner to
Absolutely.
Clean up, and
Absolutely.
You've done everything, notices of violation, you've knocked on doors, you left notices, you've done everything else.
Yes, sir.
I know that in the past I've gotten complaints that we made adjustments with an admin fee.
Sure.
Because we weren't covering our cost, and I was told, how about the people that can't afford it? And my argument back has always been, well, if they can't, one thing that you have to make sure you do is you maintain your property so you don't have to worry about somebody going and taking care of it like the city. So this has been an issue. I know that the same people that continuously call me to complain about that other fees that we put in place, this is again after you've exhausted every single effort to try to get them to take care of, maintain their own property. I just want to make sure that's very clear.
No, it's I couldn't be clearer, but I can reiterate the fact that that is exactly how the process, and in the event that there is an error, which there is every now and then, that is expunged. It's wiped off because that's on us. We didn't legally, rightfully notify. It's rare, but it happens. I sign off about 3, 5, 10 a month because we did not officially do our capacity right. So absolutely, that's just.
Do you want to go next, Mayor? No. I know how you feel about fees.
No, you got it.
He's coming around.
Well, and I think that we all know that these sites, and it's unfortunate that these occur, whether it's because a landlord is not taking care of the property, the owner can't take care of the property. I mean, there's all sorts of circumstances. But my concern has always been for the surrounding neighborhood and the people who try very hard under the same potentially financial circumstances that do take care of their property. I also know that your division works very hard. Either you and your wife and your family have helped abate things on the weekends by yourself.
Amen.
Or you look for a church or other service organization to do that. So, like you were saying, I think we exhaust every avenue before we get to this point, and I think it isn't right for the citizens of the community to pay for that. So I think that any move toward the true cost of service is what is appropriate, and I do believe over time it will change behavior. There's no reason that we should be undercutting the services that are provided by the private sector in this community in order to do this. You should be the last resort to get it done.
And I will point out, we have visited this before, I think prior to you being on the council, both of you actually, but under an RFP, we have people in the city that are privatized and have the equipment that didn't want to do this. So
it's hard work.
It's very, again, you have to charge to recoup your cost, not just your man hours, but that equipment is very, very, very astronomical to maintain. So again, I think it calls for a bigger, deeper discussion later to talk about true costs with the landfill, because right now we're not even talking about that. We're talking about depreciation, oil, gas, man hours, FICA, retirement, blah, 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 postage, notice, I can go on and on and on. So,
but we do this to help the community. This is an
absolutely.
effort to keep the community.
And we're very cognizant in our notification process. I would like to reiterate, I think you guys, the majority of you guys know that we have been very cognizant of our elderly and disabled of the city of San Angelo. I continue to be cognizant of that in every capacity. Sometimes Michael Dane has to slow me down because I can't do what I really want to do sometimes, but there's a reason for that. That's why he's my boss. But staff notices, there's a percentage of people out there that we try real hard to take care of because of the fees and because of the stuff that we impose. So, it's up to them to at least notify us to let us know that they are in that need. And there's 201 registered churches in San Angelo, Texas. So I made it a vow to myself that I'd make friends with 10% of that book of business, and between those 10 pastors, I can clean some properties. But if I don't know, or it's after the fact, I don't know what to do.
Mayor, one last thing about James. We know that his family does help in this cause in their own time on their weekends. And James gets a lot of criticism, and I believe it's because he does a really good job at this. So as I've told a caller, which I believe is also calling the city manager quite regularly, if we didn't have a problem, James wouldn't have a job. And wouldn't that be a great thing that James could go do something else rather than working to clean up the city? But until people and individuals are willing to take care of their property, code enforcement will continue to exist, and we will continue to fund that division.
Well, I'm glad there's problems.
Got it.
No, I'm just playing.
Mark this on your calendar. I agree with Mr. Fleming. we shouldn't be undercutting anything out there. Number one, we don't have the staff that's capable of doing as many needs as there is and giving away this kind of service. That I agree with him. The 373 and the 573 to me is appropriate.
Well, and I'll just reiterate a little bit on that. Again, for everybody, we have a new council person. Congratulations. This is code staff that does this too. So it's pretty unique. We are rare in that capacity. They suit up and they do not do code enforcement one day. They go get dirty. Right. And thank God one of them's got a CDL because I need a 12-yard dump truck every now and then.
They go look for bees.
Johnny?
James, the only question I had was, even the current fee, you talking about recoup, are you having difficulties even recouping that fee?
Well, again, I'm just going to touch on it because I don't want to take away from, for brevity's sake, but definitely need to continue the conversation of recouping fees. From an operational standpoint, for many years I've sat here and I've watched us remove tons and tons and tons of debris off of people's property. One event created 323 tons, and we used to do that twice a year. And I would sit back as a manager and go, golly, how does Shane eat all this, or how does whoever eat all this? Well, it's really the people are eating all this. It's just unfortunate that it was Shane's department. So we go on, we get busy and we go on, and then we still do this. And it wasn't until, I wish Patrick was here to confirm, but it was about September-ish of last year, I get a phone call from Republic, and they were questioning, or they weren't allowing me in to dispose of some items. Those items were items that had refrigerant in them. I understood that. I understand the EPA laws and stuff behind it, but it never happened before. So they wanted me to pay $25 an item. Well, I don't have that. I don't have $25 in code. I could if we set up fees and revenued it right and recouped it and blah, 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 but I don't have that. So we always beg, borrow, and steal, and that's what we did. And I got some good friends in operations, and they kind of helped me out, and they set me up an account. Well, the conversation that took place a while ago wasn't even about the $25, because you can imagine how many air conditioners are disposed of in people's backyards, window units, anything that has refrigerant in it. That's a constant thing for my guys. So I would have to either have a big checkbook or some type of PO system or whatever to accommodate this. They set up an account, but we never talked about what about the debris that's going through the gates that weighs 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000 pounds, whatever that is. It's just getting eaten. Nobody's paying for that. You're paying for my dump truck a little bit, not all of it, but you're paying for something. But at the end of the day, the rest of the citizenry is having to, their landfill will get shut sooner, or the space is going to get diminished because of non-compliance of violations. And the one in your district, for example, this is very early in the year. We've been there 4 times, and it's a minimum of 10 12-yard dump trucks from that property. So it's just his bill is nowhere near what the person should be paying. But that's I'll be quiet. So,
Rodney,
I move to approve with the estimated cost of services being the fee.
And since Charlotte marked it down on her calendar to agree, I'll second it.
She did second it.
Charlotte's already beat you to it. Okay, we'll have a motion to go. That would be 373 on the 6-yard and 573 on the 12-yard.
Yes, sir.
And could we put it down to review it again at budget time to pick up the rest of the costs?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's break
It's
even,
huge.
and that doesn't include, like you said, the haul fee out there for the amount of weight that we're putting
Nothing.
in. Okay.
This is just machinery
Charlotte, you
and
agree with
manpower.
Rodney?
She seconded it.
She did.
Yeah.
You agree? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. all right.
Kumbaya.
He said long ago.
Move to adjourn the meeting.
We do have a motion. We do have a second. Do I have any further council comment on this? Public comment on this before we vote? What's the deal, Dan?
This vote is just on a recommendation.
Okay.
It's
We'll bring
not-
back the adoption and
Okay.
ordinance.
It's not
Well, we
actual
like-
Do we even need to vote on it then, or do we just by
No,
consensus
no.
tell you to bring it
It's
back?
direction is what it really amounts to.
Okay.
So that means nothing.
So this is direction.
That means
And this
nothing.
is direction on your second. All right. Any public
Do we have-
comment on direction? Then let's call for the vote of direction. And the direction is that we go to 373 and 573
No vote.
No vote.
No vote necessary.
No vote. No
Just
vote.
giving them consensus.
We got it.
We
have
agree with it,
consensus.
but
Was
we
it the
want
consensus,
consistency
though?
We
on
have-
estimated cost of services.
I think we have consensus.
Okay.
Do we have consensus?
Is Lucy awake down there? or is-
I am. I'm
You are?
awake. I'm
Okay.
listening.
All right.
I think we have
I
consensus.
don't even hear her breathing over there.
All right. Number 27, status update, direction from council for rainwater harvesting. You finally got it on there, Rodney. Congratulations.
He sent me an email this morning.
Yes,
And
sir.
I know Russell tried to get a hold of me last week, and I didn't call him back. But
Yeah, I've been a bit hard at it.
Well, he's city manager today, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
since she has the potential of being city manager, he'll call you.
Interim
back.
city manager.
He's been working on speed hump bumps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm bringing in front of you the water harvesting curb cut update. So far, all the items that have been completed to this point are just the details, and I'll have those on a following slide. Items that I see that we need to continue on and bring forward are amending existing ordinances, i.e. the curb cut ordinance and stormwater ordinances. I would like to have general written design standards for these types of curb cuts. We need to define permitting requirements, each of these need to be reviewed by engineering services on the placement and number of. Also, we need to determine an actual size of curb cut that we're going to allow. One example would be, and that's on the following slides, is having an 18-inch wide curb cut per standard residential lot. One thing that we looked at also was having, if you have a corner lot, you could potentially have 2 curb cuts for harvesting rainwater. And then also the placement, we need to consider, where these are located within the lot. Typically you don't want to have these, near street lights or stop signs or, any above ground utilities like, electrical pedestals that, you don't want to create any safety issues. You don't want to flood out your neighbor, things of that nature. We also want to look at not having any underground piping or storage facilities within the public right-of-way or any utility easement. So should we need to get to those utility features in the future, we're not, tearing up any private piping or whatnot. This next slide is the first detail that we have. It's a curb cut with an inlet. It's a little more blown up picture of it. Basically on the left-hand side of the screen is the street. In the middle here is the curb and gutter with an 18-inch curb cut opening going to a little basin, and on the far right side of the basin is an inlet for piping to go to any type of storage facility that they might have to collect the rainwater. We want, and what we're showing here as well is to make sure that that inlet is not within the public right-of-way or a utility easement. And this is just a guideline for someone that's wanting to do this. The next slide here is curb cut and not having an actual inlet, more like having a pond behind the back of curb to, you could put landscaping in or something of the like to irrigate.
That's what it did.
Here's a more blown up picture of that. Again, on the left hand side is the street, and then on the far right hand side is the actual pond. The main consideration here is that we want to make sure that the back edge of the pond or the inlet structure, we want to make sure that it's above the back of curb. So that way, if it fills up with water, we don't want it to back up into the residence or, overflow. We want all the overflow to go back into the street. My last slide here is just a cross-section of each of these details, giving a little more detail as to how the inlets and the catchment basins should be constructed, or a general guideline. With that, are there any questions or?
Go, Rodney.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Has this, and this is before you, so I'm not getting on to you.
Right.
But not a single thing has been done in 18 months on this deal. I'm furious. This is unbelievable. Like, you just gave me a list of everything that needs to be done, and it's everything. And in fact, I think we even gave y'all the sections that y'all, and again, I'm not getting on to you. This was before you were here.
Right.
But we even gave you the drawings of this. My client did, I believe, gave you these drawings.
These are actually different than what was given to us from a client. I did find that much out.
It's unbelievable. I mean, right now, and I've been told this every 3 or 4 months. I get told this is being worked on. There hadn't been nothing done on this thing.
Well, this was all that I could find.
No, and I understand. Again, not your fault, but this thing better get done. We have this in place. This is just because we got a ton of rain last night. People need to be looking towards the future, and this is a viable option for residents in our city to use this. And I'm blown away that nothing was done in 18 months. I've been in this position for 18 months, and I've been told this is being worked on, and not a single thing was done.
Right. Now, there could have been something done that I didn't find or locate. The main thing that I was able to find were these drawings. And,
This, and as far as the first 6 months, I was told it was legal. I was told legal was having a big problem with this, and I kept telling legal that Phoenix and Arizona is doing this, that there's multiple cities throughout the country doing this very same thing, and they have it all spelled out.
Right.
Take what they have. Let's not reinvent the wheel.
I did find that, we did have a copy of what Tucson was doing, and, most of the things that they were addressing in that particular design manual were for commercial uses. And, as my knowledge was on this was more needed to be geared towards residential use.
Right.
So
for now, I'd like to go to the commercial next, but we want to do this for residential.
Sure. So, so that's why I was looking, or that from what I found, I didn't see that we could necessarily just carbon copy what Tucson was doing at this point. We need to be able to look at this from a residential standpoint and how it's going to affect that. The lot sizes are typically considerably smaller, and you don't typically have all the room that a commercial lot will have. So,
but the people that would be doing this would be going to be people that are, we were talking about people being able to afford this. Whoever's going to come up and do this is going to pay that. We talked about the plan about the inlet valves being out of the easements and sending most of the water is going to be probably sent to their backyard.
Right, or
a
some type of
holding tank of some sort in the backyard. So what I want is a game plan on this thing. Tell me what I need to do, what residents in my neighborhood need to do, and throughout the whole city to get this thing done. I've already let everybody know I'm only going to be here a year. This thing better be done in 12 months. I can't believe it's been 18 and not a single thing's been done.
Ronnie, I did talk with Russell also as far as developing that draft ordinance at this point to make sure that we have something that can be presented to council, for any changes that need to be made. But we did discuss this as well because I know that we are way shy of what we should be. And we can develop that draft ordinance if we have the support of the city council to move forward with doing so. If that's what the council is supportive of, we can definitely develop that and bring that for your review.
Okay. Charlotte, thank you.
Okay.
I just have point of clarification. Is this something that would be mandatory or voluntary on all new construction?
This is all voluntary.
All voluntary. Okay. And is it being considered in their water bills? Is there a way to consider a rebate to the customers if they're doing rain harvesting? Are we considering that while you're doing this?
Well, indirectly, we're looking at that based on.
Okay.
Elizabeth?
Well, there's a couple of things kind of at work here. I'm going to go back up to about 30,000 feet, okay?
You got it.
If everybody does this, there's nothing to be captured in a project that we're studying, okay? So we have to think about that. And one thing that I thought of, having worked on the other side of this, if we implement something like this, are y'all talking about something where a property owner releases the city from liability for that public water now going on a private property? Because that can be very problematic, and we deal with that as a council on other areas of the community where it's not properly designed for them to use that water, but where it can be detrimental to their property.
Right. I forget the exact terminology, but that was one thing that was looked at, or what I could find through previous notes on this was that the water is not owned until it actually enters a public right-of-way, or not a public right-of-way, but a water course. So
In the state of Texas.
In the state of Texas. And so anything out in the street is considered unclaimed water at that point. So, we're not. Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely need to clarify in any ordinance changes.
Right, because if too much water, just like last night's rain.
Yes.
That not everyone is going to be happy with that much water pulled off the street onto their property if it's not well thought out. So I think it's very interesting. I thought it was interesting when you proposed it, and like everything else, I think we want to really encourage people to think outside of the box and implement strategies that we really haven't thought of before. But also, if we're talking still about the Red Arroyo and capturing water that is on the streets, I'll let you use your terminology. We need to make sure we're not working at cross purposes. But I understand your frustration.
And one, can I?
Charlotte, yeah.
I have a question. You said the water was not public water till it entered the street. Is that what you said?
No. What I was actually trying to say is that until it enters a public water course, so it has to enter into the Red Arroyo or the Concho or
the
a
law
lake
in
or something
Texas
of that.
where you cannot interrupt the natural flow of water. How does that deal with curb cuts? Does that enter into it in any way, or do you know?
Carl had already looked into that, Charlotte, and he had clarified that wasn't an issue with what we're trying to do with the curb cut. So he had already reviewed it, and I think he had already gone through legal as well. But that was already an answer as that was an issue.
Yeah, he actually, from what I could tell through his notes, he had checked with TCEQ and the Texas Water Development Board.
Rodney. Very sticky stuffy.
And Liz, to answer your question on that, on the water flow, and we can do this, we could set a size of the tank that they could hold that water. In any one rain event, it would only collect so much. And the way it is the curb cuts at the front, and then the water basin. There's like a small water basin that's out of the easement,
Correct.
so it'll be set back away. So there'll be just a little drain that'll go over to that, and then there'll be a pump. There has to be a pump pumping it to wherever they're going to pump it in the back. Well, if it fills up, that water basin's full. So there at the road, it's level, so it just keeps on going down the road. So you're not.
So that's the facility that you're proposing, not just simply a curb cut.
No, it's not just. It's an engineered thing, and it's hard. And I understand their frustration in engineering because it's not just put a hole in the ground and just.
It's not simply a curb cut.
No,
it's an actual basin.
It's
a tank. It's really two tanks because it's one collection tank pumping back to a holding tank.
Right.
Sometimes we ask questions so that everyone else gets the benefit of the answer.
Sure.
And that's what you were saying, that a lot of people may do this. A lot of people are not going to do this because in reality, this cost of this project is probably going to be between $3,000 and $5,000 just to have it set up. Yeah. It's going to be an expensive thing, but it's a nice thing if you could afford to do that and you want it to have some water. This would be a nice thing to be able to do.
Correct.
I think we have consensus that we would like for you to bring this forward to us. I would do it expeditiously.
Yes, sir.
Is that a good word, Rodney?
I just don't want to wait another 12 months.
Please, Russell, please, for everyone's
Bring
sake.
it forward.
You bet.
You understand, Russell, what I'm saying here, though. 18
Yes, sir.
months. I mean, just somebody could have told me this. We're in done anything, we're not going to do anything.
Correct.
This was an update. Everybody satisfied with?
April of next year is fine. Don't go into May.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
We have one more item, and this is another one from Rodney. It's an update and progress of the police boat dock house. Chief Fant, come give us an update, please, sir.
This one's a good one.
This should be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Councilman Fleming, I do apologize for this delay on this thing. It's
No.
taken forever. There were a number of obstacles that I never would have thought that we would have ever had. I grew up in the country. You build something, and it's done. But unfortunately, we have state laws and local ordinances that we had to abide by. At this point, we've got the contract back from after council approved everything.
Chief, talking to you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
We received the sole bid from T4C Construction. We negotiated with them. We got authority to negotiate. We negotiated a little bit better contract that allowed for a couple of add-ons. We made some, I think David Knapp calls them value engineering, which means that we figured out a better way to do it with a little less expense to it. We were able to do that. We came back and presented to council the final contract, which has been signed and filed with the city clerk's office. I've had a few discussions with T4C at this point. They're adamant that they're so backed up, it's going to be 8 to 9 months before they can begin construction, unless they have a cancellation or something like that. We did talk about the fact that they could possibly go ahead and start and purchase some of the materials and stuff that they're going to build. The way that he explained it to me is they're going to be designing this, and they're actually going to be building this boathouse for the most part on their yard, on dry land. Then they'll haul it out to the lake, put it on a barge, float it into place, and then finish out construction at that point. So he said during the winter months and during the, whenever times are slow and construction can't be done, on a job site, they'll be able to go in and work on this project as it goes along to help speed things along. And he assured me that if he has any kind of cancellations, we're going to be first on the list. So that's where we stand right now.
Thanks, Jeff. I've had a lot of residents from the lake that keep asking about this, and I wanted them to have the update and to know that the money's already been appropriated. We have it done. It looks like possibly next summer that this will be in place and be ready to go by.
That's exactly correct. During our discussions, I tried to be nice about it, but I respectfully requested that T4C at all costs, they need to have that done before spring of next year, because that's when boating season will start. During the winter months, it's probably not as critical for us to have the boats out on the water, but we want to have it up there before next spring, whenever everybody starts boating again.
And I talked to Shay also. I begged him to try to move us up in line.
He
said that they may start the road down to the dock, and they also may do I think you just said they're going to try to buy most of the materials because they can lock down the cost of those materials so nothing goes up on us in the next 12 months.
Right. That's correct.
Thanks, Jeff, for the update.
You bet.
And I'm not upset with you guys because you did keep me in the wheel on what was going on, everything, all the steps along the process.
We tried.
And so you did a good job. Thank you.
Everybody happy with that? Let's go into executive.
I put my finger up. I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why did this police department bid this? Why wasn't it done through the purchasing office?
What?
Because I'm not the purchasing manager, and he told me I had to do it.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Purchasing isn't under me, but typically.
Isn't it purchasing for the entire organization?
Typically, purchasing assists with the project. For instance, all the projects I've done, we're responsible for doing that, and purchasing assists us with that, but they're not solely responsible for it. It's the department's responsibility to manage the project, bring it forward.
So there was a bid opening and all of that?
Absolutely, yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes. Purchasing did assist with it. They helped me put together the RFP.
Okay, the way I read this, I'm sorry, it just seemed
like we did.
different. And,
No, I had a lot
and
of
just
help.
so that everyone knows that you do enforce the law on a daily basis, that you're not out there breaking the law every
try
day,
very
right?
hard to enforce the law. That's correct.
Even if it's building code or something else,
Even
you
if it's
respect
building
that,
code.
right?
Even if it's building
Chief,
code.
thank you.
I told the judge yesterday that I wasn't going to go to jail for anybody for any kind of crime.
Further questions on
Thanks,
this?
Jeff.
I'm going to take us into executive. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following section. Section 5510711A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding Marta for Hirschfield Energy Systems, LLC, ETAL, and Section 5510741 to deliberate the appointment of the city attorney. It's 12:21. We're going into executive. I don't think it'll take very long. Probably be back by 1:15, 1:30. You think, boss?
I'd say about 45 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay,
should
we'll be
going
back as quickly as possible. It shouldn't take long. It's 1:13. I am calling the meeting back to order. We are now to item number 29, which is consideration of and possible action on matters discussed in the executive closed session. The one item on Marta for Hirschfield, there is nothing to disclose. There was nothing to talk about. However, we did take a consensus on the hiring of a city attorney. The city attorney that we chose was Teresa James, and I do need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And a second. Elizabeth to approve, Marty to second. Any discussion before we vote? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor of Teresa James as our new city attorney, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Please put a 7-0 on that one, Brian. Announcement and consideration of future agenda items. I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Mayor, I have a request. It's not an agenda item, but I think that it would certainly help me when we ask for something to be looked at, or if there's further action from a council item, that there might be a calendar of sorts that Daniel could maintain, and you may do that internally. It's like Mr. Fleming's item, where we have an idea of when we're going to see it again, or that way when our constituents ask us, we know that staff is taking some sort of action, even if it's just gathering data. And I don't know if this is something that we could put on the website or at least have available to us in some fashion, or an update in our Friday packets. But we make a lot of requests of you, and I know you have to prioritize those. And sometimes, as I've said, you can come back and say, we can't get all of this done in the time frame. But if we had a running list of what those were, I think it would help all of us stay organized and stay on task.
Will do. No
Thank you.
And we'll keep Rodney's blood pressure down.
Yeah, he made me a little nervous down here.
Lucy, did you have anything, ma'am?
Not at this time.
Charlotte?
Yes, I do. I would like to have a report prepared by the municipal courts year by year for the last 10 years and year to date on traffic tickets issued and the dollar amounts, the fines, where they were 10 years ago as to where they are today in the city. And I understand that that's where the best information is, and they have that information and can prepare it readily. So I am asking officially for the report to be provided at council. I can recall when Judge Gilbert used to come up and give us reports on their income and expenses and what they were experiencing in the municipal courts, and we hadn't had that in quite a while.
So you want that to go back 10 years?
Yes.
10 years, okay.
And also, I'd like to have a discussion on the emergency warning system. Let me make it very, very clear. The sirens going off a week or so ago didn't bother me one bit, because I understand that means something's different. There is a warning. Turn on your TV or find out, what's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean tornado. But I had an unbelievable amount of phone calls that they thought it was tornado only. And they were angry, irate, and wanted to know who had the authority, because the man on TV said, well, I know what the man on TV said because I turned my TV on when this warning came on. And what I feel like we've had is not maybe enough public information out there that we do have an emergency coordinating team system, and I think the mayor is on that team as well. We do have a pecking order as to who has the authority to sound the siren. It is in place. We do have those systems, but we need to maybe do a little better job in educating and communicating among the television stations, the radio stations, and the police department, everybody knowing why, because the phone calls were just flying and coming in. And that's all I'm asking, is just an update to educate. Didn't bother me. I thought it was a good call. High wind is high wind. And that's okay with me, but I would like to discuss it for public's sake and public information and how we can do a better job of letting the public know. I also would like to have a discussion on the sales of city water that is being sold outside our city limits. And I've been working with the city manager on that subject, and he knows where I'm going and how and when we'll be able to talk about it. But, you know, water, even though we got a nice rain, water is very, very critical. We have a duty to the citizens in the city of San Angelo. And I would like to discuss those sales.
Okay.
And then the other item is just to take care of item in traffic. A few years ago, we took down the four-way stop sign on campus in Harris Street. It's quite a bit of big discussion on that. I happened to be going down Campus Street the other day, and at Colorado, we still have the signs up that says four-way stop ahead. And
it never came down.
It never came down. So if we could just follow up and get that sign down, because there's no longer a four-way stop. That's all.
Johnny? Marty?
Yes. I know prior councils spent a lot of time on it, but I would like to revisit the as far as the water department, the ordinance of late payment. I know y'all spent a lot of time on it, but I'm getting quite a few phone calls because it's ordinance, it's black and white, and it's no gray area, which probably shouldn't be, but I'd like to revisit it, please.
Rodney?
Actually, while this brought this up and reminded me, I'd like to talk about the I guess the process of getting new water connections at the offices down there, because I'm having this in the last 3 months. I've had 3 different military people that have called and complained to me about them being out of town and trying to get water service connected in this city, and they've never gone to another city where it's so hard to do. You've got to show up in person with a Social Security card or an ID, and a lot of times these people are getting here on Fridays or something like that, and it's just not working out real well for them. So I'd like us to maybe address the process there and see if we can make it a little, especially for military people. I want to make it as easy as possible for military folks. The other thing I'd like to just remind everybody of is that my area's meeting is next Tuesday, the 26th, in Glen Meadows for the trash rollout for Republic, and going over the process and everything. So it'll be at Glen Meadows next Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
And I have one item, and this has just come to my attention, and it has to do with our noise ordinance. The noise ordinance starts at 7 o'clock in the morning until 10. I would like to have a provision in there that exempts the schools, and also for civic functions. I think that the noise ordinance begins at 10. The carnival goes past then, past 10 o'clock, and the schools begin to practice their bands at 6:30 in the morning. So we need a provision in our noise ordinance that exempts school functions and civic events so that we can clarify this up. I'd like to have that as quickly as possible. That's all I've got. Anyone else have anything
One other
else?
thing I just want to remind the public, thank you, Rodney. My town hall meeting in my district with this reference to the trash rollout is this Thursday night. It's at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
I think there's 6.
6
I think they're all
o'clock at
6.
Southland Baptist Church.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
mine is in June, but at these meetings, is that the only thing that's talked about, or does any other subject come up?
No, I attended the one at Lincoln last week, and it was just on the trash.
trash
But
only.
it was a very comprehensive. The head man out there is the one that handled this. It was Ray. It was very comprehensive. He answered the questions, and there were some questions, but he answered them well. He was well-versed, and it was a very good meeting. So
But
y'all, I hope
I
that
can
y'all
see-
also will
I
have.
can foresee where other subjects will come up, but.
No,
that's not
no,
the
we
case.
stayed on the agenda.
Okay.
And we have a meeting tonight at
Yeah, right here at 5:30.
Charter review.
Charter review.
Move
All right.
adjournment.
Move, did you say move to adjourn?
Yes.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
This meeting's over.